there. After most of South Africa gave the thumbs down to both the initial 2 percentage point increase and the 5 percentage point increase in value-added tax, VAT, National Treasury responded with a spending review going as far back as 2013, looking at more than 300 billion rand of spending, right? So it turns out we were not imagining things. There is a great deal of duplication, wastage and inefficiencies within government's spending system, so much so that the exercise identified potential savings of 37.5 billion rand, my apologies, 37.5 billion rand within that time frame. So at the top of 7 a.m., I'm in conversation with Business Leadership South Africa's Thulasizwe Simelane. We'll tease out how this, as well as the resources that government is putting towards growth-enhancing reforms, should shape the conversation over the budget going forward. So my conversation with Thulasizwe Simelane is at the top of 7. Mamelodi Sundowns' journey to reclaiming their place at the Summit of African Football reaches a pivotal moment this Saturday when they host Egypt's Pyramids FC at the Loftus Versfeld Stadium in the first leg of the CAF Champions League final. So the Brazilians, who last lifted the trophy in 2016 under the tutelage of Pitso Mosemane, are chasing a second continental crown, and that coveted second star adornment on their jersey. Guess what? At 7:20 or thereabout, I'll be in conversation with Bafana Bafana legend Neil Mkuku Tovi. He's going to help us make sense of all of that and how that is going to unfold. I look forward to that conversation. And then within this hour, this is a conversation that I wanted to flag for you. The new Expropriation Act is set to face its first litmus test. As many have argued, the final arbiters over the constitutional validity of this piece of South African law do not sit in the White House or the Capitol in Washington, but probably at Constitution Hill in Braamfontein. In fact, not probably, definitely at Constitution Hill in Braamfontein, Johannesburg. So AfriForum are now taking that path, with a constitutional validity challenge now launched in the High Court. The organization argues that the legislation undermines the constitutional protection of private property and could lead to the abuse of state power under the guise of land reform or public interest moves that would be taken under that law. Now, there's a conversation that all of us can join in on. That one about the constitutional validity being challenged within our courts. So we'll have that conversation with AfriForum. AfriForum's head of public relations, Ernst van Zyl, will be my guest at about 7:10. Morning brief team, to your stations for the takeoff, please. And Musa at the news desk, Rob Byrne on traffic, Zaikan at the sports desk, Melitza Buta with the morning brief in brief, and that's coming up shortly. Ndauleng Lechela has your business and market news covered, and Sipho Mantula with your Africa update at around 7:20 this morning. Through it all, I'd like you to be a part of the conversation. The number to dial 086 000 2032. Please send me your WhatsApp voice notes to 061 410 4107. On social media, we are at SAFM Radio on X. We are SAFM Radio on both Facebook and Instagram. And as always, we are live on our YouTube channel, and that is SAFM Radio. So what are we waiting for? Let's get it started.
The National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Your first things first, you talk about South Africa's president facing a near impossible task. Why do you say that?
Well, I think the great difficulty with what Cyril Ramaphosa has to deal with is the simple fact that it won't just be evidence and logic that ultimately wins the conversation here. He basically has to say, in addition to the evidence in front of us, which obviously disproves everything that Trump believes, what else can he then say in order to persuade him to change his mind? And I think we've seen in the past few months that simply saying what the facts are doesn't seem to get the type of change or the type of reaction that we expect to see from the White House these days.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM. Thulasizwe Simelane on the morning brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
So let's get this morning's briefing session started with Melissa Puta's morning brief in brief. Good morning to you, Melissa. Let's start with the ANC's Peter Mokaba region's 10th regional conference. A bit of chaos playing out there.
Morning, Thulasizwe. So the tensions erupted at the ANC Peter Mokaba region's 10th regional conference in Polokwane amid allegations of bogus delegates. The event proceeded after the ANC's National Dispute Resolution Committee resolved a final internal dispute. An urgent court application by 5 party members to delay the conference was dismissed by Judge President George Patudi, despite acknowledgement of their concerns. Provisional Secretary Ruben Madadze welcomed the ruling, warning members against misusing the courts. The conference will continue over the coming days, despite its rocky start.
At the White House meeting, Johan Rupert mentioning the crime and murder rates in the Western Cape. I see that there's some commentary, not necessarily perhaps prompted by that, but the Cape Crime Crisis Coalition is urging the president to do something about gang violence in the province.
Yes, Thulasizwe. So the Cape Crisis Coalition, is urging Ramaphosa to establish a national commission of inquiry into gang violence, emphasizing that the issue extends beyond the Western Cape and constitutes for national security crisis. Chairperson Llewellyn McMaster has highlighted that gang violence has been neglected for too long and is now prevalent in other provinces like KZN, Gauteng, and the Eastern Cape. The Western Cape recorded over 200 gang-related murders in the third quarter alone. The coalition is working with the civil society organizations to strengthen the call for this action.
Yeah. And then the eThekwini municipality, I see, is raising concern about this phenomenon of teenage pregnancies. What are the numbers that they're sharing?
So the eThekwini municipality is quite concerned about the sharp rise in teenage pregnancies in the province, reporting over 7,000 cases between April 2024 and April 2025, including over 100 involving girls aged between 10 and 14. The figures were revealed at a teenage pregnancy in Daba, which was held in Durban, which brought together stakeholders to address the growing crisis in the province. Deputy Mayor Zandile Mbieni emphasized the broad social impact of early pregnancies and called for targeted interventions, and we will have more of this in the 8 o'clock hour of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Concerning phenomenon, always, Melissa, and it also talks to issues of child sexual abuse. Let's talk about this sad news coming out of the ANC. The stalwart Gertrude Shope has passed away.
Yes, so ANC stalwart Gertrude Shope, also known as Ma Shope, has died peacefully at the age of 99 at her home in Gauteng. She is a lifelong activist and a former president of the ANC Women's League. Shope played a significant role in South Africa's liberation struggle, both in exile and in parliament. She was also a key advocate for women's and workers' rights and served in various countries during her exile. She will be remembered for her courage, her humility, and leadership. Shope is also celebrated alongside other iconic revolutionaries in South African history. This is a sad loss indeed.
Absolutely. All right, thank you for that. That's Melissa Puta with the morning brief in brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
As far as the weather goes, no warnings coming through from the South African Weather Service. So let's get straight to it. Pretoria will be fine with a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 21. Johannesburg fine 4 to 20. Mbombela partly cloudy, becoming fine during the day with a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 22. Polokwane will be fine with a minimum of 8 and a maximum of 19. Mahikeng fine 4 to 20. Bloemfontein will be fine with a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 19. Kimberley fine 0 to 20. Uppington fine 2 to 23. Cape Town fine 13 to 23. George will be fine with a minimum of 11 and a maximum of 19. Gqeberha fine with a minimum of 11 and a maximum of 20. East London fine 14 to 20. Durban fine 13 to 22. Richards Bay will be fine with a minimum of 14 and a maximum of 24. And lastly, Pietermaritzburg will have morning fog, otherwise fine with a minimum of 9 and a maximum of 21.
We're extending the sunshine on Mzansi's favorite adventure SUV with Ford Blue Sky offers. For just $849,999, a new Everest XLT could be yours. Glide through the burbs or power through nature's toughest with a 3.5-ton brake towing capacity. You'll even get 4x4 driver training through Ford Family Promise for free. Head to a Ford dealer and get your new Everest XLT for just $849,999. T&Cs apply.
Specsavers Audiology, South Africa's largest audiology group, brings you the all-new Clarity Pro rechargeable hearing aids. Experience cutting-edge features at a price you can afford. For a limited time only, buy one Clarity Pro rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right. Buy one and get 50% off the second. Visit specsavers.co.za to find your nearest store and ask for Clarity Pro today. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
The Red Devils want to wrap up the season with maximum points at Old Trafford.
Well, into the box, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. And Mason Mount strikes again. Brilliant stuff from Manchester United.
While the Villains want to conclude their good race with a victory.
Rodgers turns and sees a knee ball into an Ollie Watkins, and he's touched it home. Ollie Watkins breaks the record. Number 75 for Watkins.
This is the bottom half versus top half Premier League clash. Catch Manchester United FC versus Aston Villa FC on Sunday 25 May at 5:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Did you hear that? That's the sound of your car about to cost you a lot of money. Sorry. The engine noise you should be hearing is the boat on your upcoming diving trip. But don't let cash flow hold you back. Do both. Get a Nedbank personal loan of up to 400,000 Rand. Apply online at nedbank.co.za today. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga.
Thando Patu wrote the book On the Rocks, Memoir of a High-Functioning Alcoholic.
I came across the term when I was in therapy. I was in denial about my alcoholism. I took on a management position. It was very demanding. It was stressful. It was my first time doing it. I found myself going home, and while watching through 2 or 3 episodes, I could finish a bottle. To deal with my feelings of inadequacy and imposter syndrome and anxiety. But I just recognized that my life had become chaotic and it evolved around drinking. So I took a step back, and this is when I went into therapy. I was a deeply anxious person, and I had to take medication to control it.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. These are the weekend shows on SAFM. Music of Africa with Sheila Ndikumana. The Weekend View with Bongiwe Zwane. The Jet Set Breakfast with Michelle Constant. Seasons with Khomotso KG Mweketsi. The Soundtrack of Your Life with Ernest Pillay. Weekend Soundowner Classics with Kutlwano Masote. Spotlight with Zai Khan. The Weekend with John Gerika. Shifting Your Lens with Bertha Charuma. This is SAFM. Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
At 22 minutes after 6, let's tell you this. Despite Israel allowing over 100 aid trucks into Gaza this week, UN officials say critical supplies have yet to reach the people most in need. As humanitarian conditions deteriorate and famine risks grow, the political and military standoff between Israel and Hamas shows little sign of abating. Meanwhile, mounting international international criticism and internal dissent within Israel raise the specter of Israel potentially facing increasing diplomatic isolation. Let's speak now to Claire Minara, who is from Doctors Without Borders, emergency coordinator there, and she speaks to us from Deir al-Balah in Gaza. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. So most of us will read accounts of the extent of the human suffering, the growing threat of a catastrophic famine, the destruction of hospital infrastructure, and associated difficulty and danger of humanitarian work in Gaza. But there's nothing that beats first-hand accounts of those immersed in the situation as it unfolds, such as yourself. In your own words then, Claire, please share with us how you would describe the humanitarian situation and what you are seeing on a daily basis.
Well, the humanitarian situation is already catastrophic, and it's getting worse every day. We can see that the bombings are increasing, and the number of people coming into our hospitals with extreme trauma injuries and third-degree burns is getting more and more. And this is children we're talking about. So many are children suffering the most horrific injuries that you can imagine. In addition to this, our hospitals are being targeted, and this includes our own hospitals. We've had ours attacked several times in the past week, and still we have to continue to go there and try and support this population that desperately need it.
And on Wednesday, then, this announcement by Israel that there will be the entry of 100 aid trucks into Gaza, carrying flour, baby food, and medical supplies and the likes. No doubt, welcome provisions in a dire situation like that. But how much of a difference do you anticipate that it will make in context?
There is a very small amount of aid coming in, and it's nowhere near enough for the population. Remember that this is nearly 3 months that there was a blockade on aid coming in, and this includes food as well as medical supplies and the fuel that we need to run our ambulances, our hospitals, and to provide safe water to the population. So you can imagine that this, along with the increased bombing and attacks on civilians, means that they are just in the worst situation that you can imagine.
In terms of the patients that you see, your medical teams, the patients that they see, what are the common symptoms and what do they tell us about the conditions of the population?
Well, we see in the hospitals so many cases of trauma coming in with a lot of people, children and adults, losing their limbs because of the attacks on their homes, along with the burns patients that are really struggling because we're running critically low on medical supplies. Soon, if we don't receive enough in, we won't have enough pain medication. And these patients, they're in agony, their children screaming out as we try and dress their wounds and change the dressings that they have on these burns. It's horrible for the parents who all they can do is stand by and watch. As well, not having enough food is a huge issue because you need this food for burns patients to be able to heal. So the suffering is really beyond words.
And a lot of the reportage says a looming or imminent famine. Is it still looming, or are you starting to see people presenting with the telltale signs of famine?
Well, seeing that there was no food coming in for 3 months, the population are really suffering already. And even for the food that is available in the markets, the prices are so high that people can't afford it. It's something like $40 for a kilo of sugar. For a bag of flour, it's similar to that. It's still around $50, $60. And this is a population now living on the streets with no shelter, so they cannot afford to feed their children.
Lastly, Claire, just the dangers and, how precarious the situation is for yourselves as aid workers, just your own perspective and sharing your own trepidation and sense of worry about your own personal safety.
Well, we can hear the bombings constantly, and we had one very close to the house we live in last week. So this was really quite shocking to all of us. But still, our Palestinian staff, they're extremely brave and they're coming to work every single day. So when we fear for our own safety, we are inspired by the Palestinian staff that we have, and we keep trying to do what we can for the people here.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time. Stay safe. That's Claire Minara from Doctors Without Borders, where she is emergency coordinator, speaking to us from Deir al-Bala in Gaza.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning. Let's kick off with Mamelodi Sundowns. Their defender, Musa Lebusa, this week downplayed his notable contribution to the team ahead of the CAF Champions League final. The 32-year-old is finishing off the season strong with regular game time, having initially appeared as a fringe player under coach Miguel Cardoso, until teammate Lucas Suarez came under heavy criticism, and that was recently. Lebusa started both semi-final legs against Al Ahly and proved his worth, but the player was modest when this was pointed out. Moving on to South Africa's national team coach Hugo Broos revealing that his preliminary squad for the June international friendlies against Tanzania and Namibia, setting the stage for an exciting shake-up in the team's lineup, with Mamelodi Sundowns players unavailable due to the FIFA Club World Cup commitments. Bruges has seized the opportunity to assess new talent. Rising Orlando Pirates star Mohau Nkota and Simpiwe Selepe headline the fresh inclusions, alongside Kaizer Chiefs midfielder Yusuf Maat, who's been rewarded for his standout performances. Chiefs Mduduzi Shabalala and Bruce Vuma also making the cut, adding depth to the squad. In the meantime, Liverpool, their forward Mohamed Salah, well, he collected the Football Writers Association Footballer of the Year award for the third time in his career, and it all happened in London. The 32-year-old has scored 28 goals and provided 18 assists in a season where he has been pivotal in helping the Merseyside club lift the Premier League title. And finally, tennis. Novak Djokovic celebrated his 38th birthday with some hard-fought wins, and it all happened at the Geneva Open. The second seed he held on for a 6-4, 6-4 victory over Matteo Analdi, and that's when he'll head into the semi-finals of the Clay ATP 250 event. We'll serve up more sport. Top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, Mineral Resources Minister Gwede Mantashe insists that his department is monitoring mining companies. This after the Mining Affected Communities in Action released the report that revealed 11 mining companies across the country fulfilled less than a quarter of their legally binding social and labour plans. Parliament's Standing Committee on Finance has cautioned some parties against frustrating government's plans to generate revenue. Some political parties have rejected the increase. And 2 women are expected to appear in the New Brighton Magistrates Court in Gqeberha, the Eastern Cape today, in connection with the abduction of 2 babies. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's looking pretty good across Gauteng highways and byways. Nothing that really leaps off the page. The only thing really is it's noticeably quiet. Easy Friday, hopefully in store if given the volumes at this time of morning, sort of an indication of what's to come through. Now, a lot happening in Durban. If you're coming off the south coast, it's just quite busy this morning between Amanzimtoti and Prospect and going up 20 Hill. There was a big overrun in the overnight closure. It was only lifted around 6 a.m. this morning, so backed a lot of traffic up. There are some general roadworks around Galleria as well, so just busy out of Toti on your way through to Prospect. And the M13 is quite slow this morning, coming out of Pinetown, just the other side of St John's Avenue Bridge, through towards Cowie Hill. If you're on your way to Paradise Valley or on your way towards Westville, that M13 is unusually slow. And a collision on Inunda Road at the N2 Bridge, coming down from Newlands. There's some busy conditions there. Cape Town highways busy, but noticeably a bit lighter. Baden-Powell queuing to Strandfontein Road as it does this this time of morning. And roadworks coming out of Mitchell's Plain up some more on Michelle Way on the M7 causing delays. And a section of Govan and Becky is being constructed around Dana Fontaine Road. So if you come from sort of Crossroads, Khayelitsha, using Govan and Becky, it's a busy road. There's some additional delays already in that area. It looks like a section of Govan and Becky through towards sort of Claremont direction may well be closed with a divert around that scene. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
For the first update of the morning, let's turn to Ndauling Lichela. Good morning to you, Ndauling. Let's start with news out of the financial services sector. Tell me about Investec. Tell me about them eyeing further growth in this country and in the UK.
Morning, Thulasizwe. You're absolutely right. They're accelerating their growth initiatives in their key markets that include South Africa and the UK. And this comes after reporting a record pre-provision adjusted operating profit of over 24 billion rand. Now, the group plans to transition to end-to-end corporate banking in the UK, adding transactional banking capabilities and aims to gain market share gain market share over the next 3 years. Investec expects to serve around 1,000 clients with at least 2 products and achieve a 2% market share by 2030. In the UK private banking segment, Investec aims to more than double its client base to 18,500 clients in the next 5 years, targeting an 18% market share. Back at home here in South Africa, the group plans to accelerate client acquisition and make inroads in mid-corporate banking, targeting an 8% market share by 2030. Strategy aside, the group posted upbeat results, both revenue and profits ticking higher, which has allowed it to launch a 2.5 billion rand share buyback program. Markets really liking the news, sending the share price up 3.7% in yesterday's session.
Sean Summers is the name for Pick n Pay. Tell me about them betting on Sean Summers.
So they've extended the contract of the company's CEO, Sean Summers, until May 2028, a move that secures his leadership through the retailer's critical turnaround phase. Now, Sean Summers was reappointed in late 2023 to steer the company back on track after years of strategic missteps led to a loss of market share to competitors. Now, the group said the extension ensures continuity and stability in the leadership team during a period of transformation. Under Summers' leadership, Pick n Pay has made progress, stabilizing the business, executing a successful recapitalization that was oversubscribed, listing Boxer on the JSE, and implementing a turnaround plan. Now, Pick n Pay said the board is confident in Summers' ability to drive the company's growth and performance. And in a further show of confidence, Summers will take on the role of chair of Boxer's board in February 2026, replacing James Formby, who will succeed Gareth Ackerman as Pick n Pay's chair after the AGM in August. Ackerman, who has led the board for 15 years, will remain a non-executive director and continue to serve on various committees.
Lastly, Ndauling, please recap market activity from yesterday and also give us a sense of how things are going, especially in Asia.
So trade remains choppy to us, pretty flat in the U.S. Investors on that front grappling with fears of rising rates and worries about a ballooning U.S. deficit. The 30-year Treasury yield hit its highest since October 2023 as lawmakers consider passing that tax bill that investors fear could worsen the U.S.'s deficit. With that, we saw only the NASDAQ in the green, up close to a third overnight, the Dow and the S&P 500 trading in the red. Looking at local markets, sentiment taking a knock here at home, with the JSE mostly in the red, the all-share down 0.28%. Those losses fueled by an over 0.5% decline in the financial 15. The rand, however, has continued to hold its own back under the 18 rand mark at 17.94 to the dollar this morning. Meanwhile, Asian markets making a comeback after a downbeat close yesterday. Sentiment, however, remains weak as investors assess the U.S.'s fiscal position.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ndauling Lichela. She'll be back with more insights for you in her second report, and you can look out for that just after 7:30 here on The Morning Brief.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Sipho Mantula. Raz, good morning to you. So, the first time I heard about the Chagos Islands, I was still a very young, up-and-coming, highly energetic reporter, and there was a whole delegation that had come from the islands and had come to the SABC here and basically trying to raise the plight of the Chagos Islands. Lots of developments. Tell me what's the latest that has come through from the British government in relation to these islands and handing control over to Mauritius.
Thulas, this is developing news, a very interesting news, that as we are commemorating Africa Month, we see Mauritius regaining one of its islands, the Chagos Islands. As you have said, that around 2019 there was a lot of litigation going to the International Court of Justice. The issues of how UK was unlawfully kept up by having this colonial island since the 1800s. Thulas, it goes to the 1960s, but it's not only UK, it also includes the Americans who have built a military base there. And that's how yesterday there was a deal agreed by the UK Prime Minister to hand over the sovereignty of that island, of Chagos Island, with the court process that was led by two women who pushed for this restoration of the Chagos Island to Mauritius. There's also the agreement around UK paying Mauritius almost £101 million per year to lease back the base for at least 99 years. So these are the deals that have been signed lately between UK and Mauritius.
And then in other news, Sipho, tell me about, this is interesting, isn't it? There's always this talk about we don't want aid. We don't want aid, we want trade. Tell me about the EU and the investments that they're pushing. It's called the Douala N'Djamena corridor. Yeah, what's that about?
That is quite true, Thulas. When you think of Douala and N'Djamena, these are two capital cities of African countries in West Africa. That's Cameroon, Douala, N'Djamena, that's Chad. Now, it's critical for you to have infrastructure and vital routes, Thulas, because these are the two ports that are connecting both Cameroon and Chad. Now, the EU is putting this initiative as part of what they call a global gateway initiative, which is boosting what they call sustainable infrastructure development worldwide. It might create jobs to us. It might promote regional integration within the West Africa region. It must also promote stability. And hence we have said Africa does not need only aid to us, but it also needs trade as equal partners.
Yeah. And then it's that time of the year once again, Sipho, where we are all, glued to the annual Thabo Mbeki Africa Day lecture. This time around, it's in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania.
Before that will happen tomorrow. Actually, yesterday, there was what they call the town hall gathering by the University of Dar es Salaam at the historic hall of Nkrumah, where they were looking at reigniting the African Renaissance. Despite that, we know tomorrow the theme is the state of the African continent, but at this town hall talk, it was former President Thabo Mbeki, former President of Tanzania, Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, as well as the former EFF and radio presenter now, Mbuyiseni Dokotela Ndlozi, who were part of that debate, and Simon Shayo. And to us, what came out very clear is the issues that are facing Africa. Because we are talking about Africa Liberation Weekend now. There are many challenges that we see in the Sahel. There are many calls that are coming from the Sahel over this weekend on supporting Traore, but the state of the continent, to us, it still sticks on this concept of the rebirth of the African continent. The continental consciousness that Ndlozi spoke about, the issues of global trade, to us, the intellectual and leadership capital that we are missing in the African continent. So tomorrow, all roads are leading to Dar es Salaam, to Julius Nyerere International Convention Center, where it will be streamed live through UNISA YouTube to look at the 15th annual lecture of the Thabo Mbeki Day lecture on the state of the African continent.
Hey, listen, Tanzania is home to us South Africans. I mean, I saw that they made a stop over in Morogoro there in Tanzania. Yeah. So much so, Sipho, that I'm just reminiscing. One of the streets there in Morogoro around the Somafco campus is known as Double Up Street, because the people there told me that when South Africans were there, they used to take that as a double up, and double up in South Africa means something else called together.
Yeah, it's a shortcut. Yeah, it's a shortcut.
To this day, they call it Double Up Street.
That's very true. And actually, the former president went on the train, on Morogoro train yesterday, actually, with the other members of the Nyerere Foundation. So this is a very important connection between South Africa and Tanzania.
Then tell me about this is one of those bizarre stories, but I mean, bizarre seems to be the hallmark of the current administration in Washington. Tell me about this picture that is doing the rounds when U.S. President Donald Trump was allegedly showing a non-existent evidence of a non-existent genocide in South Africa. He showed a picture and it's been traced back to where?
Thulas, it's been traced back to the DRC, to Goma, and that was on the 3rd of February, after the Battle of Goma. Reuters media say that footage was a deadly battle with the Rwanda-backed M23. So they took a screenshot of the video taken during that time. So it was falsely presented, as you have said, as a mass killings of Afrikaners in South Africa. Now, Reuters came very clear to defend that and say that actually you used our image of the 3rd of February when we showed the crisis that was in the eastern DRC. You will see that there were the Red Cross people to us who were lifting the body bags there. Yeah. Very sad images that you can talk about. But as you look, is the issue how it was presented to South Africa. So these are what we call in other studies. I think a few listening will have said these are conspiracy theory studies to us that you bring into the chat room and you use them with the false claims, what we call bigotry, opinion without facts. And that's how we had to deal with that affair of Trump. That's why I thought that we have to bring that element. Yesterday we could not talk about DRC and Congo to us because he spoke about being pleased that they are inking a peace deal on the DRC. And we've been in DRC for more than 20 years, Thulas. We should not say, no, you are doing a good job. We know that their intervention in the DRC is all about minerals.
Yeah, what can we say, Sipho? I mean, every day we are astounded by some of the claims that are made out of the White House. Lastly, in your historical archives, take me back to 23 May 1994. What happened?
Thulas, this historical archive, I promise there's a question when you're on a public holiday on the 1st of May, actually, to the listeners. And listeners got the answer correct. It's 31 years that South Africa became a full member, the 53rd member of the then Organization of African Unity in Tunis. And the delegation was led by the then late former Foreign Affairs Minister Alfred Nzo. So we joined the OAU Thulas on this day, 1994. Very important that we had to get into challenges that we're facing Africa, get into the summit, talk to Salim Ahmed Salim, get into people like Kofi Annan, deal with Boutros Ghali on challenges that we're facing Africa during that time. These were interesting times where you can say South Africa, its foreign policy was dominating the conflicts in Africa. Just after 94, you will recall how we came in with our intervention in the DRC, intervention in Burundi. And so these were moments when you talk about Africa Day weekend. As you know, Sunday is the Africa Day, but it's still not a public holiday in our SADC region. That's my lament. We talk about Africa Day, but so long as you don't put it as a public holiday to conscientize our young people and our role, how we became part of the Organization of African Unity, now called the African Union, and we changed it in Durban in 2002, if you will recall, in July. Asante sana Thulas, as I lead in the conversation, SFM observing the Africa Month.
Asante sana to you as well, Sipho Mantula there, with your Africa update for today.
From the shows that bring us laughter to the moments that inspire us, your SABC TV license makes it all possible. Every license paid supports local stories, top talent, and the programs that unite South Africa. Pay your TV license today. Visit tvlic.co.za or your nearest retail outlet. #Your Screen, Your Story. Together, we make it happen.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
TUT ladies are on a humongous mission to play their hearts out. But Masandawana ladies believe they are unstoppable. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Do not miss out on the glittering action of Mzansi's women's football. TUT Ladies FC versus Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC on Sunday 25 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC One, and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
All right, we'll come back to your calls in a moment. Let's take this story, though. From the 4th of June, more than 6 rand on the price of every litre of petrol that you pour in your car will go towards taxes. And thanks to the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana's adjustment upwards of the general fuel levy. In his budget speech delivered on Wednesday, Godongwana highlighted that the general fuel levy is the only tax increase entailed in the budget. It will see the general fuel levy on petrol increased by 16 cents per litre and on diesel by 15 cents per litre, which, along with other taxes, which are not increasing in this budget, such as the Road Accident Fund levy and carbon tax, will take the total tax component of the fuel price to over 6 rand per litre. So let's speak to Mandla Hermanas, who is Santaco's National Public Relations Officer. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. So this is an increase of 16 cents. How significant is it given the context and the cascading effect that we know any increase on the fuel price can have on other services and products?
Thank you, Thulas, and thank you for having me. This is going to have a very negative impact on our operations because it's going to directly affect what our drivers are able to make at the end of the day. Because now the portion that they will be spending on fuel is going to increase. It's going to affect us and it's going to affect our bottom line. And should there be any further increases due to, say, the rand-dollar exchange or the cost of oil overseas, then that might force us to adjust our prices. But for now, we think we will be able to manage without changing our fares at the moment. But it's going to affect us, but we will carry the cost of the fuel levy. We won't be passing it to our customers at the moment.
And that's an important point to make, is it not, Mandla? The ability to cope with this, increase in the general fuel levy. Is the reason why you are able to cope with it, at least for now, the fact that overall fuel prices are a bit on the moderate side, and in fact there's a projection of a fuel price decrease in the coming month?
Yes, absolutely, because there was a time when we were approaching 26, 27 rand per litre in diesel. So I think now we are at least still able to cope because, as you say, the prices are still moderate, even though we only become really profitable when the fuel prices are in the range of 20 rands or less per litre. That's when then it makes sense for us. But also the other challenge is that when we increase our prices, we must always bear in mind that we still need to be competitive. We still need to be affordable to our customers because we are competing with subsidized modes who can easily absorb these costs because they get subsidies from government, which we do not.
Yeah. Is any of this ameliorated and sort of cushioned by the fact that the minister makes the point that this is the first general fuel levy increase in 3 years? So there's been a bit of a pause. And in a way, I think I saw it being framed as it was a bit of a tax break for various, sectors and ordinary consumers of petroleum products.
Yes, absolutely. And also the fact that it's not a drastic increase. It's manageable, even though it will have a ripple effect on our operational costs. But those will not warrant us to adjust our prices. So that's why we will be able to manage.
And lastly, Mandla, because I know how conversations go and how they develop, let me just ask you this question, which I anticipate someone at some point will raise. What's the conversation about tax compliance within your own industry? Because part of the context for all of this is the need to generate more revenue into the fiscus. And I can anticipate someone coming back in and saying, very rich of Santaco to talk about the general fuel levy when many of their own members just don't pay tax?
I think it's a misconception that our members don't pay tax because for any transaction that you do with the Transportation Board in relation to your operating license, you always have to produce a tax clearance certificate. I think the challenge is that when members register for tax, what we have picked up, some, they don't register correctly. So whatever tax they pay is not assigned to minibus taxi operations because of how they have registered. Because some would have registered for tax when they were employed, but now they are no longer employed. They are working as minibus taxi operators, but that tax that they pay is not assigned to minibus taxi operations. It's a matter of how one has been registered as a taxpayer. I think what is needed there is education by SARS and also maybe designing a specific tax returns regime that is designed to assist minibus taxi operators, that takes into account how we operate, what we do, what expenses we incur, so that it's easy for people to be compliant. But it is a requirement for any registered minibus taxi operator to have a tax clearance certificate.
Makes sense to me. Thank you for that. Mandla Hermanas, Santaco's National Public Relations Officer.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Morning, a little bit slow on the M1 going up into Pretoria. Northbound, a crash just between Rigel and Garsfontein, so a little bit of backlogging going on there. Joburg not having the worst start of the week. Friday can be a little bit easier, and we can see that in the traffic flows this morning. Malabongwe Drive, a lot of traffic lights down. You come from North Riding down into central Randburg through that Stratham Park area, so the run through the highway is quite heavy. And a crash coming in from Protea Glen this morning. It's on the N12, Joburg bound, just by Klipspruit Valley Road. N2 coming out of Amanzam Turkey through to Prospecton is slow, but the heaviness that we saw around the earlier overnight overrun closure of the N2 plus some roadworks around Galleria seems to be lifted, so sort of normalised traffic coming through from Turkey. Busy but moving. There's a new roadworks layout on the M13 as you make your way out of Pinetown through Cowie's Hill, so that's slow. And a collision on the N2 bridge with Inunda Road, so Inunda Road coming down from Newlands is quite a heavy backlog this morning. Cape Town side, Marine Drive, Tableview Bayside through to the first lights at Sunset Beach. That's already busy. And a lot of roadworks going along the busy Govan and Becky Road between Crossroads and sort of Philippi, bottom of Nyanga. So Govan and Becky down towards Danafontaine Road on your way towards sort of Wynberg and Claremont direction. Very slow going. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
From city streets to dirt trails, introducing the new Isuzu MU-X. Sleek enough for the city, tough enough for the mountains. With advanced all-terrain drive, 360-degree camera, and upgraded suspension to take on any journey. The new Isuzu MU-X, now including the new Onyx XT. It's an SUV with 4x4 capabilities, ready for anything. Experience the new Isuzu MU-X at your nearest dealership today.
Do great solutions start with good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
All right, let's turn to the story now. AfriForum has launched a constitutional challenge against the newly signed Expropriation Act, and that challenge launched in the High Court. The organization argues that the legislation undermines the constitutional protection of private property and could lead to the abuse of state power under the guise of land reform or public interest developments. So let's speak to Ernst Van Zyl, who is Head of Public Relations at AfriForum. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. What is the spearhead of your constitutional attack on this piece of legislation?
Good morning, Thulasizwe. When it comes to AfriForum's court challenge, there's a core argument. So there's many sections that we are going to be challenging in the court when it comes to the Expropriation Act, but there's a particular center to our argument, and that is the no compensation section, where the Act currently grants the government the power to expropriate property without compensation, and it's not a limited power, it's a power that's quite broad. You'll see under the section, or above at the intro to the section of the no compensation section, I think it's section 12, you'll read that it says, here are some examples where expropriation without compensation can happen, but this list is non-exhaustive. It includes but is not limited to. That's a very broad power that the government has granted. So that's one of the key factors that we're going to be taking on. And the other one at the center of our argument is also the fact that if the government were to then expropriate someone's property and you then challenge it in court, throughout that court battle, you are going to be deprived of your property. And that can be 5 years, it could be a 6-year court battle. It can take many years, as is the nature of the justice system in South Africa. So that's another serious risk.
But that's not my reading, though. If you read, for instance, Section 19, which talks about the remedies that you can resort to try and settle a dispute over the compensation that is appropriate for property that has been expropriated. The provision there talks about within 180 days of the notice of expropriation, you can start proceedings in court yourself, or actually you can ask the government itself to start those proceedings in court so that it's settled. And it seems to me that's a way to buffer, the property owner from having to incur the costs of that litigation. But the point I'm making is my reading of it is not that you would already have been deprived of the property, because this is to be launched within 180 days of the notice of expropriation.
No, that's not AfriForum's reading. AfriForum's reading of the Act is that even though that part is within the Act itself, that 180 days is more of a little formality that's been added, but in practice it's not going to play out that way. In practice, it's going to be years long in court that you're going to be fighting, because it's in the end, you're going to be challenging it in court, and whatever happens in that court case is going to be appealed. You're then going to go to the Supreme Court of Appeal. Whatever happens in that court case, whoever loses there is going to be taking it to the Constitutional Court inevitably, which is going to be another extension on this very long court battle. And there's the other aspect as well that needs to be taken into account, and that is the property owner, whether that be a farmer or otherwise, is going to be funding this whole court battle out of his own pocket. And if he is deprived of his property, his farm, he's not going to have the income, he's going to at least struggle to find the income for this very long and very expensive court battle. So there's very serious flaws in particular to that section as well.
What do you say to someone who says this is the path you should have taken in the first instance before venturing outside of the country and raising these issues in foreign capitals, including Washington? This remedy has always been available for you as a group, as AfriForum.
Well, when it comes to something as important and as integral as the constitutional right to private property, you take every avenue at your disposal to fight an attack against or a threat against that right. So AfriForum announced already very early on that our defense of private property in South Africa will take many forms, seeing as this is an absolutely integral issue when it comes to a right that we very highly value. So yes, AfriForum is going to court, but we also have an international facet, because nothing is certain. You do not know whether the court case is going to be successful. We have a very strong feeling about and a very strong confidence in our court case. But as you see with the Kill the Boer court case there, the Con Court didn't even want to hear the argument. So there's always that option that the court case, the court system does not support you, and that the courts fail minorities or property owners. That's always a possibility.
Yeah.
So therefore we do the international side as well.
All right, I've got to leave it there for this morning. That's Ernst van Zyl, who is Head of Public Relations at AfriForum. I'm a bit late for news. Apologies for that. Let's check in with N. Musa now.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, Mantashe reacts to a report on mining companies and suspect charged with murder in Israeli embassy shooting. Good morning. Mineral Resources Minister Gwede Mantashe insists that his department is monitoring mining companies. This after the Mining Affected Communities in Action released the report that revealed 11 mining companies across the country fulfilled less than a quarter of their legally binding social and labour plans. Mantashe says the social labour plan is a thorny issue.
Social and labour plan is quite a complex issue because it is dynamic. The first dynamic is that sometimes when you go with SLPs in communities, community leaders want money to go to them in the hand. And our approach to social and labour plans is that don't build small projects, build significant and impactful projects. That's why the majority of mining companies build schools, build clinics, fence fields for food production. So that is actually improving every day, and we're monitoring it every day.
Parliament's Standing Committee on Finance has cautioned some parties against frustrating government's plans to generate revenue. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana announced an increase in the fuel levy during his budget speech before the National Assembly in Cape Town on Wednesday. Some political parties have rejected the increase. The committee's chairperson, Joe Maswangani, says some political parties are promoting populist agendas, including opposing government's tax policy.
We should not promote a situation where we don't want the public and the corporates to pay taxes. It will not be right that every time the state talks about increasing a tax, we encourage protest. You are not going to run a state based on populism, because there's no state that can function without revenue. Otherwise, if you want to run the government and the state in general based on populism, that you will never raise a tax and you'll never do this, at some state that state is going to collapse.
The ANC's Peter Mokaba region in Limpopo has elected its top 5 leaders. This is despite some delegates at the elective conference walking out, citing intimidation. They are reported to be supporters of the slate of ANC Women's League chairperson and Capricorn District Executive Mayor Mamedu Pitefu. Polokwane Municipal Mayor John Mpie's slate was elected uncontested. He will serve a 3rd term. Some delegates who walked out have vowed to contest the legitimacy of the conference.
We'll report to the national office what has happened here. We can't have a conference of the ANC where delegates cannot speak freely. We are threatened by police. We are threatened by bouncers from everywhere, even outside the country. But we'll raise our grievance with the leadership of the ANC at a national level.
That thing is not a conference. It's a bogus conference.
2 women are expected to appear in the new Brighton Magistrates Court in Gqeberha, the Eastern Cape today, in connection with the abduction of 2 babies. The babies were abducted from the Dorangiza Hospital's maternity ward on Tuesday night. The suspects were arrested outside the hospital with the infants. The Health MEC Ntandokazi Kapa says one of the suspects registered herself at the hospital using a false alias and pretended to be pregnant with twins.
The whole thing was planned. The suspect did attend, trying to pretend as if she's pregnant, attending the antenatal care that we do, what is called ANC. And she was told that she's not pregnant. But unfortunately, she did not tell the boyfriend that she's not pregnant because she had plans. And she came in and registered under the false name. She's been moving around the hospital. Even the boyfriend bought baby clothes because they were expecting a child.
And finally, the man suspected of gunning down two Israeli embassy staff in Washington on Wednesday night has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Elias Rodriguez has also been charged with various offences related to the possession of firearms. The BBC's Jane J. Kwan has more details.
The young couple were leaving an event at the Jewish Museum when they were killed. Elias Rodriguez is accused of walking up to them, shooting them at close range. He's charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder as well as murder of a foreign official. The authorities are investigating his motive, which may lead to a terrorism charge. They've raided his home in Chicago. In court, Elias Rodriguez was told he could be facing the death penalty or life in prison. Although police believe the gunman acted alone, they've stepped up their presence outside the nation's synagogues and schools.
Recapping the top story, Mineral Resources Minister Gwede Mantashe insists his department is monitoring mining companies. This after the mining-affected communities in action released the report that revealed 11 mining companies across the country fulfilled less than a quarter of their legally binding social and labour plans. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
Have you heard the latest news, South Africa? Vincent, a 40-year-old man, wanted to save money on his car insurance premium, so he got a quote from Outsurance. Vincent now saves a massive 990 Rand a month on his 2022 Ford Ranger 2.2 litre. Outsurance clients always get something out. You could too. Get a quote today and see how much they could save you on your car insurance. Why pay more when you could pay less? Switch to Outsurance today. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
It's a very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. Soccer action. Sundowns are gearing up for the CAP final. They've got a Loftus, which will become a fortress against the Egyptian side Pyramids FC. And we'll head to Geneva, where Novak Djokovic has made it through to the semi-finals. Details just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Crash in Pretoria, N1 North between Rigel and Gaasfontein. So traffic quite heavily back through towards about the R21 highway. Eastern side of Pretoria, that Graham Road down by Lombardy Estate, very slow, going not only into Pretoria but outbound as well this morning. And heavy mist around Daveyton, Benoni along the N12 and associated corridors. Drive carefully there, please. Prospecton side of the N2 coming in from Twinny Hill stays busy. There's a whole pile of construction going on in that area. In Nunda Road at the N2, there's a crash out of Newlands, very busy. N3 looks okay, coming in from Pinetown, and even the M13 that was a bit disrupted this morning around Cowie's Hill with some sort of new roadworks there. That seems to have normalised as well. Cape Town, 2 big routes out of Mitchell's Plain to Philippi, M7 and Veldsvreden Road. They are both jamming up this morning and quite heavy coming in along Marine Drive. Traffic sitting from Bayside through to the first lights at Sunset Beach. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Coming up to 11 minutes after 7 on this Friday. Let me quickly tell you what's coming up in this hour. First up, my conversation with Busisiwe Mavuso, who is the CEO of Business Leadership South Africa. We'll be reflecting on the budget that was delivered by Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana on Wednesday, particularly issues around the structural reforms that we keep crying about in terms of stimulating economic growth. And then shortly after that, I'll be speaking to the Bafana legend, Neil Tovey. We'll just be talking ahead of the first leg of the CAF Champions League final. Mamelodi Sundowns stands a chance of adding, a second win in as far as that tournament is concerned. That final, the first leg against Pyramids FC of Egypt, will be played on Saturday. I look forward to that conversation. And then a bit later later on in this hour, at about 10 to 8, we'll be giving the Department of Health in Gauteng a right of reply to the sentiments and comments that were made by the Public Servants Association about Tembisa Hospital and the fire that occurred there earlier on in the year. So the department will come back and give us their perspective. Through it all, give me a call. The number to dial 086 000 2032. Please send me WhatsApp voice notes to 061 410 4107. The second hour of the Friday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Do you want to study towards a tertiary qualification but need a flexible study schedule? Stadio Higher Education's distance learning qualifications offer just that. Our distance learning support is designed for your success. 2025 applications to Stadio's range of high-quality, affordable qualifications are now open. Distance learning qualifications are available in law, administration and management, commerce, teacher education, policing, law enforcement, humanities, and information technology. Visit stadio.ac.za and register today. Stadio, a new vision in higher education.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
So Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana finally managed to deliver a budget whose elements will likely pass muster in Parliament, setting the parameters for government revenue generation and expenditure. Over the next 3 years, government plans to spend nearly 6.2 trillion rand on various programs, including more than 1 trillion rand on infrastructure. Godongwana also outlined spending on frontline service delivery departments, including education, health and social grants, which he says will mostly retain the allocations he made on the 12th of March, despite overall budget hairline trims to spending in the medium term. So let's speak to Busisiwe Mavuso, the CEO of Business Leadership South Africa. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. The Finance Minister insists that this is not an austerity budget, but an expansionary one. Which one is it for you?
Look, I think it is it is definitely the latter.
Yes.
It is definitely the latter because I think I see the minister trying to put interventions in place that are going to ensure that we spend more carefully going forward. And I think what I mean by that is the money that is actually spending on SARS. It could be a revenue outsource for now, but if you look at what SARS is going to be doing with that money, the fact that they plan to target illicit trade, when you look at what illicit trade costs us, as an economy on an annual basis, it's about 100 billion rand that is actually estimated. And I think the losses in as far as tax revenue is concerned are estimated at about 250 million rand daily. I mean, think of a packet of cigarettes. A packet of cigarettes have got an excise duty of about 22 rand, but you've got retailers selling packet of cigarettes at 15 rand. So that just tells you that there's so many illicit products there in the market: cigarettes, alcohol, pharmaceutical products, textiles. So there is so much money that we're actually losing in as far as that is concerned. So we might be trimming in certain areas, but where we are spending so that in future we can be able to get back that money. I like what National Treasury as well, Thulasizwe, has actually embarked upon. They're actually saying we are going ahead and conducting formal expenditure reviews, which are actually going to go back as far as 2013 to see where is government, spending wastefully and where are there inefficiencies in government. And they're saying so far in the exercise that we've done, we have found about 38 billion rand, that can actually be clawed back into the fiscus, and that can actually improve oversight and operational changes. And I think there is the piece of work that they want to do in looking at the underperforming programs, and there is a lot of those, in government at the moment, and there is a lot of institutions that have been set up that are not delivering what they need to deliver, that are not bringing the ROI, that are actually not are helping the country in the way that they're supposed to help the country, and all of those are actually going to be reviewed. So I really think that they are on the right track, and they're spending money where it matters, where it will actually, in the short to medium term, benefit the fiscal overall.
I imagine that you'll be particularly pleased about the amount of expenditure that will go towards infrastructure, and three sectors in particular that are under focus there: transport and logistics being the one, the other being energy, and then the third one being water and sanitation. What do you believe will be the impact if followed through and done efficiently and effectively? What will be the impact in terms of unlocking our economy?
The impact is going to be great. It is going to be great because those are the basics that South Africa is supposed to get right anyway. And because of our failure of not getting those right, we are seeing investment being redirected. We are seeing investment being lost. We are seeing investment actually being paused, being put on ice because South Africa's environment is not a conducive one. But I think it's going to be even more critically important now, Thulasizwe, because remember, we are actively trying to get new markets, in terms of because of the tariff issues that we're currently facing. We have brought in the UAE. China is saying, I'm actually going to open more areas of my market for you. And we're actively looking at who else can we actually bring in, as markets, as investors in South Africa, to try and bridge the gap, with the tensions that we're currently experiencing with the US. In bringing those markets over, this is what these investors are actually going to look for. They want to know, is South Africa a conducive environment within which to operate? Because if we are not, they don't have to land in South Africa, Thulasizwe, because remember, their interest in landing in South Africa is so that they can access the 1.4 billion people that are in the African continent. So if ours is not a conducive environment, they go to Kenya, they go to Ghana, they go to Rwanda, they go to Nigeria, they go elsewhere, in the African continent, and we therefore lose that investment that we so much need. So the trillion rands in critical infrastructure is important, because then it allows us to get that investment, which will allow us to grow our economy at decent levels, which will allow us to arrest the 43% unemployment in terms of the standard definition.
Did you hear enough, though, Busisiwe Mavuso, by way of putting resources behind the plans around structural reforms, particularly Operation Vulindlela 2.0, as it relates to how local government functions and how it has been crumbling and failing thus far?
That was launched 2 weeks ago already, and I think the plans that they laid out there, in terms of what, number one, they are beefing up the Operation Vulindlela office. That office has been operating with about 5 people. I think there's going to be 20 people now, that they're actually going to be bringing in, but that is over and above what we as business are doing, Thulasizwe, in terms of giving independent contractors, giving skills, giving resources to the Operation Vulindlela office. The exciting one for me, when this Operation Vulindlela 2 was launched 2 weeks ago at Union Buildings, was that over and above local government, special planning and digital transformation, which are the 3 areas that they were originally supposed to look at, the very Minister Kodongwana sponsored a view at that launch to say, President, we should probably maybe also look at procurement reforms. And the President said, yes, let's look at how we can actually add that 4th item of procurement reforms. Because, Thulasizwe, we can do everything that we're doing at the moment. If we are not going to clamp down on the malfeasance, if we are not going to clamp down on the fact that whatever rand we spend, whatever rand comes off of National Treasury into the system, only 20 cents or 30 cents of that goes towards its intended purpose. 70 cents of that, is stolen, it is looted, it goes through malfeasance. It is not going to be a useful exercise. I sat at a presentation, I think about 3 weeks ago, where someone was actually, it's interesting, I heard you saying you're going to be talking to the Tembisa Hospital issue. Someone was actually saying the investigation that is being done there, which led to the killing of Papita Deokaran, which is the malfeasance that is happening there. Tembisa Hospital is buying a 12.5 liter heavy duty bucket for 9,000 rand. When you go to macro, that bucket is 128 rand. That is the kind of malfeasance that is there in the system. A 12.5 liter heavy duty bucket, 9,000 rand. And this fire, by the way, that was started at Tembisa Hospital, when you look at where it was started in terms of the position, it was adjacent to the finance office where all these files are actually being kept, because the SIU is insisting that bring those files, we want to assess and we want to see what's happening. So unless and until put interventions in place to actually clamp up on those things, it's useless. How does a Tembisa hospital and how do we as government, our vet money, our tax money, go towards paying for a bucket? 9,000. I almost fell off my chair when I actually got that number.
Yeah,
so I really think that is important, and I really think that the procurement reforms in particular are going to be important, because then we can deal with some of these things.
Lastly, then, let me ask you about the revenue proposals. So a VAT increase off the table altogether, but in its stead, we're getting this first increase in 3 years in the general fuel levy, 16 cents per litre in as far as petrol goes and 15 cents per litre as far as diesel goes. It won't generate as much as, National Treasury would have liked, but there's concern about the kind of impact that it will have, especially among the poor.
There is absolutely no doubt. I mean, we saw the unemployment numbers rose, I think about 3 weeks ago when those numbers were actually issued. There's more people who have joined the unemployment queues. There are more South Africans who don't have disposable income. So it will unfortunately hit low-income households the hardest, and it will strain consumer spending. But I think you have to look at it and you say, you need to somehow find ways, of bringing in the tax revenue. Where are you actually going to bring it in? Which is the better of the evils, because they are all evils at the end of the day, but which one has got, lesser impact, as it were. VAT, I think, would have been more harsher on an average consumer.
Yeah.
Fuel levy is still as harsh, but not, as harsh as the VAT. So it's quite unfortunate, and South Africans are going to be under stress. But while we continue to have these issues, Thulasizwe, of malfeasance, of corruption, let's understand as South Africa that we are going to continue to have to pay for the thieving, for the looting, for the stealing, until we actually clamp down on those.
Absolutely.
That is why the illicit trade project for me is actually quite exciting, because that is actually going to bring about 50 billion rand additional revenue into the fiscus, and that is critical.
Let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. That's Busisiwe Mavuso, the CEO of Business Leadership South Africa.
Hey, want to check your TV license balance conveniently? Look no further. Our SMS service allows you to do just that. By sending a message containing your ID or TV license number to 44210, you can quickly access your balance without needing multiple inquiries or waiting on hold. Plus, standard SMS rates apply. Take advantage of this efficient method to stay informed and streamline your payment process today. T's and C's apply.
WAFCON defending champions Banyana have a crucial meeting with the Zebras. Both nations are elevating their preparations for the highly anticipated Women's Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco. This is the international friendly. Experience the Southern African Derby, South Africa versus Botswana, this Wednesday 28 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, S3 and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let me take one or two of your voice notes. I see someone wants to talk about and reflect on the conversation we had with AfriForum a bit earlier on, talking about the court challenge that they are now launching in the High Court, challenging the constitutionality of the Expropriation Act.
Thulasizwe and team, morning. Very rich of fun sale to say you use everything at your disposal, including going to Washington. Well, why can't then we use everything at our disposal to get the land back that was stolen from us? So they can use everything at their disposal, but we can't. Very rich of him to say that. But that's how AfriForum thinks. AfriForum wants to challenge everything, and then they say the Concord doesn't support them. The court system doesn't support them. It supports them when they win cases, but when they lose cases, they feel they are not supported.
Yeah. No. I got that point, and I hear exactly what you are saying. And I suppose, it's an ongoing conversation about who makes the United States the arbiter on issues of dispute within the country. As I think I said a few months ago, that if this piece of legislation doesn't sit well within the framework of our constitution. Trust me, believe me, take it to the bank. We won't be talking about an Expropriation Act of 2024 in the next year, next 2 years. It will be gone. You and I know this. There's a proven track record, and we've been steadfast on this path. So I don't know what then makes you feel like, I'm out of options. Therefore, I'm going to exercise an option that is not freely available to everyone within the country. I can't take my grievances. I have judgments I don't like on a daily basis. I've got judgments I don't like, but I can't take them elsewhere. So, but I get the point that you are making. Let me quickly play this one ahead of going to Zai Khan. All of us can afford to say Kabuyelo for a change.
Good morning, Thulas. As a Pirates supporter from Messina, Knightsfield, I really would like and wish Sundowns all the best for their first leg game of the final of CAF. We are behind it. He's representing South Africa. He's representing the progress of soccer in South Africa. All the best, Masandawana. God bless Reverend Adam Manganyi in Musina.
Absolutely, Reverend.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that, Reverend. On that note,
this is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Yep, we've got the blessing from the Reverend.
You're serious when the Reverend calls. Yeah, I feel sorry for Pyramids actually, but nevertheless, it's going to be a fortress that is Loftus tomorrow. We'll have Mamelodi Sundowns. They're 2 matches away from a continental glory. And it's the first leg of the CAF Champions League final. Defender Musa Lebusa has been one of the surprise standouts, returning to the starting lineup just in time to help shut out Al Ahly in the semi-finals. He's calling for focus, especially with the dangerous striker Fiston Mayela leading the Pyramids attack. With a spot in the FIFA Club World Cup on the line, Sundowns know they must maximize their home advantage before heading to Cairo.
Yeah, I think it will ease up the pressure on us if we seal it at home. But CAF games are very different to any other competition. If we don't get to seal it, we'll make sure that we stay in the game for as long as possible. But come Saturday, with the 12 men, we think that we still have a very good chance on sealing it.
Elsewhere, Real Madrid Croatian midfielder Luka Modric says he would leave the Spanish Giants after the Club World Cup this season. The Croatian has played nearly 600 games for Real Madrid since joining them from Tottenham in 2012, winning the Champions League 6 times, the Copa del Rey twice, and 4 La Liga titles, among 28 trophies in total. Now, Modric, who became Madrid captain last season, won the Ballon d'Or in 2018 for his performance with Madrid and also for his country as Croatia finished runners-up at the World Cup in Russia. Cricket, Andile Simelane and Tian van Vuren delivered crucial wickets on day 3 to keep South Africa's emerging men in the game.
It's a Simelane.
It's a Simelane.
What did you expect?
No relation to Thulas, by the way, but hey... It's a Simelane making waves out there in Bangladesh. All happened with the pair reducing the host to 5 for 2 after the SA emerging men were all out for 243, trailing by 65 runs. And tennis Novak Djokovic celebrating his 38th birthday with a hard-fought revenge victory against Matteo Analdi at the Geneva Open, 6-4, 6-4, and he's reached the semi-finals at the Clay ATP 250 event. And finally, Formula One, Lewis Hamilton has agreed the time really is running out for Ferrari this season before it switches its full focus to the new power unit regulation next year.
I have no idea how it's going to affect us, but I'm glad we have some. I'm glad it's something new. If we every year we come to Monaco, it's the same format every weekend, and you get pretty much the same result, 1 stop. I think at least this time we're forced to have to do 2 stops, and you've got to decide whether you do that early or later in the race. So I definitely think it throws a spanner into the mix. Hopefully it makes it a little bit more exciting than it already is.
Well, it's lights out to the checkered flag. We'll be back with more sport, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musan. The headlines: former City of Cape Town member of the Mayoral Committee for Human Settlements, Malusi Boy, and 28 co-accused are expected to appear in the Cape Town Magistrates Court today. Mineral Resources Minister Gwede Mantashe insists that his department is monitoring mining companies. This after the Mining Affected Communities in Action released a report that revealed 11 mining companies across the country fulfilled less than a quarter of their legally binding social and labour plans. And the ANC's Peter Mokaba region in Limpopo has elected its top 5 leaders. This is despite some delegates at the elective conference walking out citing intimidation. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Running heavy on Joburg's N3 today from the Elands interchange up through Galulis all the way into Edenvale. It's a broken down vehicle at Modderfontein Road causing that problem. N14 is heavy. This is the Krugersdorp Highway section. A crash between the Lanceria off-ramp and the 114 up at Diepsloot. So the closer you get to Diepsloot, the heavier that backlog gets. Durban's N2, 20 Hill up to Prospecton remains slow. M7 going into Pinetown, dreadful this morning. Very heavy from as far back as Hans Detman. Crash on the Inanda Road at the N2 bridge, still with us. So coming out of Newlands down to Parlock, that's very slow going today. And Cape Town, a crash on Marine Drive. Well, it's just off Marine Drive on Milner Road, but that's causing a delay on Marine Drive for motorists coming from Milnerton into that Pardon Island area. Also, quite a backlog of traffic this morning on the N3 and N2 routes. A broken down vehicle at Hospital Bend. So the N2 inbound through the Bends busy from Langa, and behind that the M3 just as you merge into the N2 or being held up, pushing a queue back into Newlands. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again in Dowling. So I see that the Western Cape property market is looking good, at least if the demand that Spear is picking up is to be believed.
That's right, Thulasizwe. And Spear being, a property company, just invested in properties in the Western Cape. They're really benefiting from the boom we're seeing on that front. They're saying that they are gaining momentum in the commercial property market, driven by a strong recovery in the Western Cape office market. With limited premium space and slow new development, demand is high, positioning the company for rental growth. Now, Spear's office portfolio occupancy rate has increased to almost 93%. These are levels we don't see when it comes to the property market. And this is up from 84% a year ago. Distributable income per share rose 3%, while rental collections remain near 100%. And the company expects a 4 to 6% increase in distributable income for the current financial year. The group's net asset value per share also increased by 3.5% to just over 12 Rand, and this was driven by 13 successful acquisitions worth 1.15 billion Rand. Now, Spear's share price has risen by 25% over the past year, just reflecting strong investor confidence in the company. The group CEO, Quinton Rossi, remains optimistic about the company's strategic focus on the Western Cape and expects consistent asset value growth and predictable financial performance as it moves into FY 2026.
And I see that the other Cape province, also known as Epondweni, is also not doing too shabbily when it comes to the property market.
Yes, Thulasizwe, and we're just seeing this immigration trend really picking up and that really boosting these coastal areas. I think the only coastal area that's still seeing some struggles is KZN. But from some of the research I've done, the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape, particularly when it comes to the property market, it seems like, they're gaining traction. And now this is according to Better Bond's latest data. The Eastern Cape has taken the lead in home loan approvals, surpassing the Western Cape with an approval ratio of 83.9%. And this marks a significant shift, with the Eastern Cape recording a 10.2% gain since 2021. The national average loan application approval ratio has also improved, reaching 77.5% for the 12 months ending April. Now, the report suggests that further interest rate cuts could boost home loan approvals as improved affordability encourages more buyers to enter the market. Banks are also becoming more home loan friendly with strong competition among leaders despite the economic challenges. Now, residential building activity has been slow, except in regions with high immigration rates, as mentioned, the likes of the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape. Western Cape in particular, where we've seen the province seen a surge in building plans passed and completed, while other regions like Gauteng have experienced declines. The Western Cape leads in average first-time buyer house prices at 1.72 million rands, with most regions experiencing double-digit price growth. However, transaction volumes, though, are still below pre-pandemic levels.
Yeah, I don't know about you, hey? If the powers that be at SAFM allowed it, I can see myself broadcasting from Ekabecha every
No, same.
I would move.
I think we should just put in a motion.
Come on, Andile. You know what to do. Lastly, Ntauling, how are the markets looking at this hour?
So kicking things off in Asia, stocks climbing, recovering from yesterday's downbeat session. Now, traders on that front digesting inflation numbers out of Japan. Core inflation on that front hitting a 2-year high, and this could force the Bank of Japan's hand in terms of rate hikes. Meanwhile, in the U.S., futures are mixed. That's as concerns remain over the country's debt as lawmakers malpassing the highly controversial tax bill. Then coming back home, markets in the red with the all-share losing 0.28% overnight. The rand, in the meantime, trading firmer, benefiting from a faltering dollar. It's at 17.92 the greenback this hour.
All right, thank you for that. We'll talk to you in the third hour. That's Ntauling Lechela. She'll be back just after 8:30, giving you a sense of the kind of day you can expect in the markets on this Friday.
Welcome back to the sun-drenched shores of St. Marie, where the beaches are beautiful and the murders are mysterious. It's Death in Paradise Season 7. New cases, quirky suspects, and D.I. Jack Mooney, who's still figuring out the island and how to drink coconut water gracefully. Catch the show where paradise meets puzzling crime, because even in paradise, someone always has a secret. Death in Paradise Season 7, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 28 May. S3, open up.
The Red Devils want to wrap up the season with maximum points at Old Trafford.
Into the box, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. And Mason Mount strikes again. Brilliant stuff from Manchester United.
While the Villains want to conclude their good race with a victory.
Rodgers turns and sees the knee ball into an Ollie Watkins, and he's touched it home. Ollie Watkins breaks the record. Number 75 for Watkins.
This is the bottom half versus top half Premier League clash. Catch Manchester United FC versus Aston Villa FC on Sunday 25 May at 5:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Yeah, before I go to the calls, let me quickly take this engagement from Mautle in Tembisa, who sent a WhatsApp message, and I really like this. I can wake up to this every day, just, that to and fro, stimulating engagements between you and I. Mautle talks about the point that I made earlier on, questioning what gives a group like AfriForum, the platform to take issues elsewhere, outside of the systems that we've agreed, as arbiters of disputes, particularly disputes of law in our country, and then pivot and say, we're going to raise it at an international level. Mautle then says, what makes you or anybody have the right to take their unfavorable court outcomes elsewhere out of South Africa? And then says, Zuma said he's taking his case for appeal at ICJ because Concord didn't rule in his favor. That's Mautle. And I think, Mautle, that really emphasizes the point that I was making, that beyond the courts that we have in this country, to the extent that it's possible and the jurisdiction allows for it, we have other courts. You have the African Court on Human and People's Rights. You could take it to, I don't know if it raises the jurisdiction of any of the international courts, you could, which is very different from where you just go to people that you know will buy your story and will be showing videos in the Oval Office because it suits the narrative that they want to drive, and there won't be a hearing. There'll just be consequences that are meted out without a hearing, and I think that's the point that I was making. Speaking of the Oval Office, and it's a movie, quote-unquote, movie theater, let me go to Mokoena in Rustenburg. Good morning. You want to talk about that meeting?
Good morning, Thulasizwe. You made me to wait for a very long time on the line yesterday.
Yes.
And in my heart, I was just saying, you see now, the Takaso Consortium shareholder does not want to talk to me on a lighter note.
Yes.
Yes. I think the president went there for one thing and one thing only.
Yeah.
From where I was sitting, he wanted to advance the interest of the country rather than to make him a hero on this one. I think he handled that quite good. You could see on numerous occasions that Trump will intervene, interject him while he was trying to explain,
yes,
and he will calmly keep quiet, allow him to take the spot because that's what Trump prefers.
Yeah.
And one other thing is the fact that I felt that USA also has a great respect for South Africa. You could see that the deputy president did not even utter a word. You remember what happened?
J.D. Vance, yeah.
So it was chaos. It was a fight of cats. So I think the president did quite good, and let's hope for the best.
Yeah, look, Mukona, I agree with you, and I think part of it had to do with what the ground rules, the rules of engagement were before that meeting even took place. I enjoyed Oliver Dixon's opening yesterday because it gave extensive background. It's one of those instances where there was a leaning into the networks that you have. The sense that I got from Oliver's background was that this was not a meeting arranged in the usual channels, but, it was leaning in. What networks do you have that can get us into a room and would be talking? Hence the dynamics that you described there. Mukwena, we've got to move on. Thank you for that.
In as much as Rupert facilitated the meeting, but I felt that I don't think we need Starlink to curb the crime. We think we need the government that is going to create employment for the youth so that we can work, and in that way I think the rate of crime will definitely
Thank you, Mukwena. Let me move on. That's Mukwena in Rustenburg. Thank you for that. Also on the same Oval meeting and Mamelodi Sundowns, Begin Mpumalanga. Good morning to you.
My brother, how are you?
Very well.
I'm sorry to greet you. Always
no, it's all
very
good.
skeptical about time. I'm worried. I'm very, very worried. I'm going to be brief and short.
Sure.
About John Steenhuisen. I don't know his surname. I pronounce it very well.
Sure.
He shows, even in the international world, that he hates with passion the leaders of the EFF and Umkhonto weSizwe. And I think it was totally disingenuous for him to say that as a democratic alliance and so on, blah, 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 because he was there representing the government. And that on its own, I think he will need to go to a better political school to understand how to negotiate when you're outside. But over and above that, I'm also worried the way we were so, submissive, I'll say, or subservient to the United States. We don't owe them anything.
Yeah.
We are a democratic country, and we don't account to them. Then maybe to pass on that, Mamelodi Sundowns, my brother, has got a very formidable team, and it's a very formidable side. I wish them all the best, but I'm disappointed that you didn't call me and you opt to call Neil Toby. Maybe because he was a Bafana player. But
and then we battled to get a hold of him after all of that. But we will have a conversation with him maybe at some point in the future. Begin Mpumalanga. Thank you for that. Cheridzi in Midrand, also on that Oval Office meeting. Good morning to you. Please go ahead.
Morning, Thomas. How are you?
Yeah, very well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm majority of the time I'm a critic of Cyril Ramaphosa. Like, I normally do not agree with a lot of stuff that the ANC under his leadership has done. But this time, let me give them my credit to say, or their credit to say, look, they've done a very good thing for a country like South Africa in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
But what I saw happening in the White House when they were playing the clip of that song, it then brought the issue of ethical guilt to all South African delegates. You know, to say we are preaching a one nation, but then we still have a group of people who seem to be so vocal. And because words are very dangerous, Thomas, even if we say, look, this is a struggle song that the Constitutional Court, yes, it said it's not a hate speech. But remember, when we move as leaders to a point of ethics, we move beyond legality and talk about what is the right thing to do now, not what we have a right to do.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that is where we are struggling as a country to say, can we move beyond what we have right to do and consider what is the right thing to do at a moment, so that we can bring a unity and cohesion, social cohesion of the country. Because when you talk about this thing of we have serious crime, which is a fact, you will realize that it's no longer about what is legal, and it's about what is right and what is wrong.
All right, Chiridzi, thank you. Strong point made by Chiridzi there in Midrand. Let me go to Temba in Protea in Soweto. Good morning to you, Temba. Data is on your mind this morning. Is it data as in data information or data? Okay, you go ahead.
It's about the crediting of data.
Yes.
If you want to credit data.
Yes, please go ahead.
I don't know, maybe it's South African English. When you credit something, you credit to pay it on the month's end.
Yes.
Understand?
Yes.
Depend.
That data advance, they call it.
Yeah. So this data, they expect to have a sort of airtime in your account. When you credit that data without airtime, they don't give you. You can't get it. But if there is airtime, they quickly repay themselves with your available. But they say it's an advance. A credit.
Yeah.
What kind of? They say it's an advance. So you ask yourself, is it a South African English or understand? I don't get it. And then the last point is, people who are who think sovereignty, it means no intervention from other countries. I think they should go back and relook what's the meaning of sovereignty.
Yeah.
Understand? It's like that is why we are having family problems, because what is done from Gwamba Singh, it cannot be entertained by other surnames. It leads them to deadly family killings because there is no intervention. They want to do things for themselves as family. So if we continue with this mentality of sovereignty, we are going to have people like who are saying we don't owe a USA anything. Such people, they are very dangerous. They understand, because they want to remain in sovereign, so that they continue abusing ordinary South African people in the name of we don't owe USA. We need USA to safeguard our sovereignty. People, they are so abusive.
All right, Temba.
Without US, they were going to abuse us.
Thank you for that. That's Temba in Protea there. Partly raising issues, bread and butter issues, right? That whole issue of the price of data and resorting to advances. That's what should be at the back of our minds when we are engaging on these conversations around structural reforms, Operation Vulindlela, whatever policies that are about the so-called network industries. At the end of the day, there are people behind it. And I think I liked that first part of Temba's point more than, well, I'm not saying more than, but, that's the part that I felt I needed to plug in and speak about a bit more. Glenn in Bedford View, good morning. You want to talk about Mcebisi Jonas?
Thulas, good morning, my brother. I'm going to make 3 quick points unless you engage me. Number one, President Ramaphosa will warn him about Jola that is not wanted in the USA. Trump will never accept that guy. The Ramaphosa must take the very same advice he gave to Trump. He must learn to listen. Number two, Ramaphosa must go back. He must stop quoting Tata Mandela and is not following in his footsteps. Tata Mandela was a unifier. Ramaphosa is not doing that. They are obsessed with this ANC black nonsense. They must, Ramaphosa is the president for the entire country. That means black, white, Indian, colored. He must start visiting African communities and unite the country practically, not only on paper or through speeches. He must go visit these African areas and meet with them, not these those offices of AfriForum. He must go where they live, like Mandela used to do. My last point, Trump was very calm, Thulas. We all know Trump is very controversial, but Trump was very calm. Yes. Trump, welcomed Ramaphosa in a very good way at the White House. Ramaphosa is the one who messed up the opportunity because this lady from Newsroom Africa asked a question to Trump about the genocide. Ramaphosa volunteered to answer. That was a very stupid move coming from the president. He should have allowed Trump to answer and then come in based on Trump's answer. But now he wanted to be sort of the main character in that story. That's why he messed up.
All right, Glenn, thank you. Strong points there made by Glenn in Bedfordview. Thank you for that. That's Glenn there in Bedfordview. I'll make more time and take more of your calls and your other engagements as well a bit later on in the show.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Gusthorpe Highway under some pressure this morning from Lanseria, making your way up towards Diepsloot. A crash about halfway between those two exits on the Pretoria-bound track causing delays. The N3 from Elands through Edenvale easing up. There was only a breakdown at Modderfontein Road. It has been cleared. Houghton Drive, we've had a crash all morning coming up from the Wilds towards the Mike Highway. If you're going north through that part of Parktown, it stays really busy. Pretoria, not the worst run through the traffic this morning. A little bit of traffic just on the N1 north up towards Castlesfontein, but nothing too desperate at this stage. Durban's M7 from Hunstedman up into central Pinetown. A problem again this morning. Gets really heavy through there. The M4 over Blue Lagoon through the Virginia Airport on your way towards Umhlanga. That is quite busy and still backlogging coming off the Tweeny Hill area up into Prospect, and there's a lot of roadworks going on around that side. Cape Town this morning, quite a big crash just outside Cape Town on the R60 just south of Worcester. If you're doing the Worcester-Robinson run, you will be stuck. There's some very heavy backlogging and a fatal crash out that side, so it probably will take a bit longer to clear that scene up. Marine Drive fairly heavy this morning. Tableview through Sunset Beach and then Milnerton down towards a crash just off Marine Drive at Milner Road, causing some additional delays. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Are you looking for deals you can't ignore? Get unbeatable baby savings at Dis-Chem this winter. Buy Baby Things premium nappies for only R179.99 per pack. Get 20% off Bepanthen Baby 100-gram nappy care ointment. And buy any 3 Johnson's baby products and get the cheapest free. Don't miss out on big baby savings, valid from 13 May till 15 June. Only at Dis-Chem Pharmacies. Better health starts here.
The Red Devils want to wrap up the season with maximum points at Old Trafford.
Into the box, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. And Mason Mount strikes again. Brilliant stuff from Manchester United.
While the Villains want to conclude their good race with a victory.
Rodgers turns and sees a knee ball into an Ollie Watkins, and he's touched it home. Ollie Watkins breaks the record. Number 75 for Watkins.
This is the bottom half versus top half Premier League clash. Catch Manchester United FC versus Aston Villa FC on Sunday 25 May at 5:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
All right, let's continue with some of your engagements. We were meant to be speaking to Dr. Sipho Senabe, who is Chief Director, Human Resource Development and Employee Health and Wellness Program at the Department of Health in Gauteng. I remember they wanted to get a right of reply in light of the conversation we had yesterday around this time with the Public Servants Association and the provincial organizer Madimeja Mautla, whose union accuses the provincial government of engaging in diversionary discretionary and negligent response tactics in response to the recent fire at Tembisa Hospital. Just battling a little bit to get a hold of Dr. Senabe. So no worries, we'll take them, perhaps we'll make arrangements and talk to them at a future date and ensure that they get that right of reply. But in the meantime, lots of contributions that are coming through from you, and I'm very happy to do that. So let me go to, just battling to refresh here a little bit. Let me go to this one that has to do, earlier on we told you about the increase in the fuel levy that was announced in the budget. Let's hear what this person has to say about that.
Good morning, Thulasi. It's Robert Unchimistin. They put more pressure on a citizen by increasing the fuel, because now it will be hard for people to ride on the taxis, especially. And then there's no one who care there, because they don't want to minimize the cabinet. I don't know why they don't want to minimize the cabinet.
Hey.
I thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that conversation is mute, hey? No one is talking about not just the cabinet as in the ministers, but the executive, the size of the executive. So many people have raised it to say, what about this expenditure item? What about this expenditure item? Hey, response from that side. Aye. Let me hear what someone has to say about the ANC in Limpopo. The Peter Mokaba conference took place yesterday, and in the reporting that we're doing now, the leadership elected, but there was some chaos before that election took place. All right, battling with that system for the moment, so I'll come back to it in a moment. But I can take a call from Simiselo in East London. Good morning to you, Simiselo. You want to talk to me about that meeting in the Oval Office?
Thulas, I think there was something very significant about the meeting at the Oval.
Yes.
One, Johan Rupert, to many of us, he has been painted as this bad person and as this person that is white-centric. But I think he proved to many that for him it's not really about his whiteness or anything similar to that, but it's really about the nation building, about South Africa as a country.
Yeah.
And the second part about it is that if this man, being a billionaire that he is, and so with so many businesses, if he were to pack up and leave the country, what would then become of people that are employed by his companies? Because I do think that it contributes a significant number in the labor market in terms of we employ.
Yeah.
Then lastly, I think Vini Salosi also, I don't think much has been spoken about her comment, but there was a lot of progressive content in what she uttered in that meeting. And then lastly, Thulas, just on this point, our politics have been reduced to rhetoric. There's less conviction from our politicians, hence we're embarrassed. Not necessarily about what is happening in the country, but rather the political rhetoric that is the order of the day in our country.
Yeah.
We understand with the freedom of speech and all of that, but surely our conviction for political parties should not lie purely on rhetoric, but it should be taken a step further, and then also it be about conviction. Stop them stopping being hypocrites. They say the same thing, yet on the side they do something totally different.
Smiselo, thank you for that. There's so much that you've raised there that's so interesting, Smiselo. I would have wanted to engage a bit more on those points, but I do want to fit in a call from Kirk in Cape Town, so I won't do that. Good morning to you, Kirk. You also want to talk about the same issue. Please go ahead.
Yes, Thulasizwe. For me, the meeting was, I think it achieved the outcomes that were desired by the presidency. I think Mr. Ramaphosa handled himself really, really well. The ambush with the video that was shown and the fake news that Donald Trump continues to spout was not surprising. He's not the type of person who seems to back down from his ill-informed information. But I think they did very well. I was very impressed with Johan Rupert. The fact that Ernie Els was there was, for me, neither here nor there. It didn't seem to make any much of a difference. John Steenhuisen was also a little bit iffy for me, pushing the DA's agenda when the bigger issue is the national agenda. But I was quite pleased with the outcome.
All right.
So well done, Team SA.
Thank you for that, Kirk. Similar, sentiments have been shared by many people. So quite interesting to hear the similarities in the points that people are making in reflection about that meeting. And I wonder if John Steenhuisen, upon his return, if he's back already, or perhaps at a date in the future, may want to share his own reflections on how that meeting went. I wonder. All right, at 8 a.m., let me go over now to N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, Malusi Boy and co-accused back in court over tender fraud, and former DRC president loses immunity over M23 support accusations. Good morning. Former City of Cape Town member of the Mayoral Committee for Human Settlements, Malusi Boy, and 28 co-accused are expected to appear in the Cape Town Magistrates Court today. The 28 include alleged crime boss Ralph Stanfield and his wife. The group is facing charges including money laundering, racketeering, fraud and violations under the Prevention of Organised Crime Act. The case relates to a tender amounting over 1 billion rand in the city. The state alleges that Boy, a former DA Mayoral Committee member, and the co-accused are part of a criminal enterprise that Stanfield leads. Boy is out on bail of 250,000 rand. Stanfield and his wife remain in custody. Mineral Resources Minister Gwede Mantashe insists that his department is monitoring mining companies. This after the Mining Affected Communities in Action released a report that revealed 11 mining companies across the country fulfilled less than a quarter of their legally binding social and labour plans. Mantashe says the social labour plan is a thorny issue.
Social and labour plan is quite a complex issue because it is dynamic. The first dynamic is that sometimes when you go with SLPs in communities, community leaders want money to go to them in the hand. And our approach to social and labour plans is that don't build small projects, build significant and impactful projects. That's why the majority of mining companies build schools, build clinics, fence fields for food production. So that is actually improving every day and we're monitoring it every day.
The ANC's Peter Mokaba region in Limpopo has elected its top 5 leaders. This is despite some delegates at the elective conference walking out, citing intimidation. They are reported to be supporters of the slate of ANC Women's League chairperson and Capricorn District Executive Mayor Mamedu Pitefu. Polokwane Municipal Mayor John Mpie Slate was elected uncontested. He will serve a 3rd term. Some delegates who walked out have vowed to contest the legitimacy of the conference.
We'll report to the national office what has happened here. We can't have a conference of the ANC where delegates cannot speak freely. We are threatened by police. We are threatened by bouncers from everywhere, even outside the country. But we'll raise our grievance with the leadership of the ANC at a national level.
That thing is not a conference. It's a bogus conference.
Senators in the Democratic Republic of Congo have approved a government request that former President Joseph Kabila be stripped of his parliamentary immunity and charged with treason. Kinshasa accused the DRC former leader of supporting the M23 rebels. The BBC's Damascene de Boissy reports.
Kabila has lost the honorary lifetime senatorial immunity he had been granted in 2019 when he left office, paving the way for him to stand trial. But his current whereabouts are unconfirmed. Mr. Kabila has previously denied links to the rebels. If Mr. Kabila stands trial, he will become the first former head of state in the DRC to face treason charges. But analysts warn a trial could destabilize the country. The government has not yet confirmed when a formal indictment or trial could take place.
And finally, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has accused some of his country's closest allies of siding with rapists and baby killers after they criticized Israel's conduct in Gaza. On Monday, Britain, France and Canada condemned the expanded Israeli military operation and the denial of humanitarian aid to civilians in the territory. Netanyahu said the leaders of the three countries had bought into Hamas propaganda.
I say to President Macron, Prime Minister Carney and Prime Minister Starmer, when mass murderers, rapists, baby killers and kidnappers thank you, you're on the wrong side of justice. You're on the wrong side of humanity. And you're on the wrong side of history.
Recapping the top story, former City of Cape Town member of the Mayoral Committee for Human Settlements, Malusi Boy, and 28 co-accused are expected to appear in the Cape Town Magistrates Court today. The case relates to a tender amounting over 1 billion rand in the city. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
Here's some breaking news you might have missed. Gordon, a 44-year-old man, switched to Outsurance and now saves an unbelievable 2,794 rand a month on his 2019 Ford Everest 2-litre automatic. Imagine having 2,794 rand more money every month. Outsurance clients always get something out. You could too. Get a quote today and see how much they could save you on your car insurance. Make today the day you switch and save with Outsurance. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. A licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's online.
It's a very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. Soccer, we're building up to Mamelodi Sundowns, aiming to secure their second CAF Champions League title. And we'll head to Monaco for the Formula One Grand Prix. We'll hear from Lewis Hamilton on the new changes coming up just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Crash in Joburg on the bike one up by Empire Road. So the run up through Crown Interchange, staying heavy at the south. Backlogs from Boyson's right through to that Parktown area. Collision on the N14 heading towards Pretoria halfway between Lanseria and Diepsloot. That's quite heavy. And Mari's just been on the jam line reporting a stationary truck blocking 2 lanes, N1 south at Rigel. That's likely to start queuing things up through there. Durban, the Kumashu Highway, stationary truck on the N2 bridge. That's causing chaos coming out of Kumashu, coming up the Chris Hani from Durban North, and also the N2 North coming up from Queen Nandi Drive to off-ramp in that mess. That's quite a heavy backlog. Those sort of exit lanes off the N2 really quite heavily jammed. Cape Town this morning, crash on Marine Drive just off Milner Road, but that's enough to cause traffic delays coming in from the Milnerton side, and a major crash just south of Worcester, causing quite heavy delays on the R60. It's a fatal collision. There will be some delays and possibly detours around that scene for some time. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
8 minutes after 8 on this Friday, it is great to be in your company. This is the third hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. So as I always say, in the last 2 hours, we set the fuses and we lit them, and the conversation is exploding in multiple directions. The one direction in which it's not exploding is my highly anticipated conversation with the legend Neil Tovey ahead of the final yesterday. And trust Nkosinathi Luthuli in Soweto to then troll me. About it, because I think he picked up the excitement in my voice. And now this conversation has not happened because we just battled to connect to Neil Tovey. And then says to me, I'm only here to hear the legend Neil Tovey. All right, Nkosinathi, It's fine. Someday now you will have something not go your way and someone will troll you the way that you are trolling me this morning. But on the other point that Nkosinati wants to make, let me just read it out for you on the WhatsApp line. Nkosinati is saying the ANC may say the South African delegation, quote unquote, accomplished its purpose for its visit to the American government. However, Trump seemed to remain firm in his stance. And that's from Nkosinati Lutuli in Soweto. And I wonder, Nkosinati, to what extent was part of the purpose to communicate broader than just convincing Donald Trump? Did anyone really believe that it will take one meeting in the Oval Office and in the cabinet room to convince Donald Trump against some of the things that he holds dear in his heart and in his mind? I don't know. Maybe that was part of the purpose, but I do suspect that the other part of the purpose was to shift the conversation and speak directly to Americans, speak directly to people outside of the United States as well. If you see the coverage, the global coverage of that story, you will see that to a certain extent has actually happened in the way that people have digested and interpreted some of the events that happened in the Oval Office. And then someone says on the WhatsApp line, Trump about Malema to Ramaphosa, why don't you arrest him? Yeah, I picked that up. It was weird. We don't arrest people for speech in this country. We simply don't do that. We just don't. So, yeah, no. It can be problematic, offensive, borderline, violating what we hold dear sometimes. We challenge each other and we take it up through the systems and the processes that are provided for. But arrest someone for what they say and their views, that was weird. But that came through from Donald Trump. All right. In the next few minutes, we'll be talking about that disturbing phenomenon around the issue of teenage pregnancies as picked up in a recent indaba that was held, a teenage pregnancy indaba held at the Inkosi Albert Lutuli ICC in Durban. That conversation coming up in just a moment.
WAFCON defending champions Banyana have a crucial meeting with the Zebras. Both nations are elevating their preparations for the highly anticipated Women's Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco. This is the international friendly. Experience the Southern African Derby, South Africa versus Botswana, this Wednesday 28 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, S3 and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Hey Feel Good fam, we've got a new WhatsApp number. You know we love hearing from you, so save this, 063 036 9649. Send us your shout-outs, voice notes, or just check in like you always do. Same good vibes, just a fresh new line. That's 063 036 9649. Let's feel good together, weekdays 6 to 9 a.m. on S3.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
13 minutes after 8, the eThekwini municipality has sounded the alarm over a sharp rise in teenage pregnancies, with more than 7,600 cases reported between April 2024 and April 2025. Let me say that number slowly again so that it sinks in. 7,600 cases of teenage pregnancies between April 2024 and April 2025, including 154 involving girls aged just between 10 and 14. The crisis was the focus of a teenage pregnancy indaba, which was held this week at Durban's Inkosi Albert Lutuli ICC, where officials, educators, and civil society leaders gathered to craft urgent interventions. So let's speak to Councillor Zama Sokhabase, who is the chairperson of the community services in the eThekwini municipality. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. What prompted you to hold this indaba?
Greetings to you, Makuchwa, and your listeners on a lovely Friday. Thanks for inviting us. What prompted us is to hold the teenage pregnancy indaba was the greatly responding to the areas of concern after receiving statistics and reports from the quarterly District 8 Council meeting which we held quarterly, and it's chaired by our Honorable Mayor that give us
Councillor?
Give us the reason to make this indaba.
Mm-hmm.
The stats that we are receiving, the huge ones, is 7,627 girls age 10 to 19. That's why we just collaborated to mitigate this stats.
Yeah. So when you were in that indaba and you're hearing the different voices that were talking to this problem, what are some of the common factors that are identified? I imagine that the whole issue of the abuse, the sexual abuse of children in spaces where they really should be protected must have also come up.
The most areas is the
Councillor Sokabas? Sorry, I think we lost you there for a moment. You were saying the most concerning areas?
The most concerning areas is the HIV.
Uh-huh.
Yes, it's the HIV stats that told us that our teenagers, mostly the girls, have the HIV through the vulnerable, also through the things that is not, the education that is not in their place. So we were trying to get the platform where everyone, the teachers, the faith-based organization, the civil society organization, where we can talk with one voice to mitigate this public ill, which it takes our young girls out of school. It takes our young girls childhood to be vulnerable. So whatever we were doing on that day was to introduce the platform where we can come together and put our efforts in challenging this ill.
All right. I've got to thank you for your time. Thank you for raising that conversation, a crucial conversation to raise and focus on. That's Councillor Zama Sokabase, who is Chairperson of Community Services in the eThekwini municipality.
The boys of Radu Davids are searching for 2 early goals to get back to the game in Zanzibar. But their Moroccan visitors want to finish off what they started in Pikani. Wekundu Wamsimbazi battles it out with the Orange Boys. This is the second leg final contest of the Total Energies CAF Confederation Cup. Do not miss out on the spectacular clash of African football. Simba Sports Club versus RSP Pikani FC. This Sunday, 25 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Also available on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Hey Feel Good fam, we've got a new WhatsApp number. You know we love hearing from you, so save this: 063 036 9649. Send us your shout-outs, voice notes, or just check in like you always do. Same good vibes, just a fresh new line. That's 063 036 9649. Let's feel good together. Weekdays 6 to 9 a.m. on S3.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, let me start by responding to this coming through on the WhatsApp line. Someone says, was Penny Sparrow not arrested, charged, convicted and sentenced for her comments? Where was her quote-unquote freedom of speech, asks that person. And my response to that is read your constitution. That's it. That's my response. The long and short of it, read your constitution. This is a society where rights are balanced with responsibilities. Your rights can't impinge on my rights. Those are really the boundaries, really. It wasn't about her freedom of speech or anything. Every right in our constitution is limited. And I challenge you, find me a constitution that underpins any functional society that doesn't have limitations, that says you can say and do whatever. But does that detract from the existence of freedom of expression in this country? Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. What it is your exercise of your rights must not impinge and infringe on the rights of the next person. That's what democratic societies are based on, really, a balancing of everyone's rights. So what was supposed to happen? Penny Sparrow was supposed to enjoy her rights, and then doesn't matter how those affect the rights of the next person. The whole system is based on balancing rights of various people across the board. And what you're talking about there is crimen injuria. It's a particular type of speech that harms, the dignity rights of the next person. If Penny Sparrow was critical of the government and critical of whatever and voiced her strongest opinion on that without infringing anyone else's rights, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. But thank you for sending that through. Modise in Mafikeng, is it Mafikeng? Those of us who live outside of it say Mahikeng, and you guys insist it's Mafikeng. What's that about? Tell me about Orania this morning.
Okay, morning, it's Mahikeng. It has been changed from Mahikeng to Mahikeng.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm saying I'm not in support of Orania, but if I would have money, I would have buy a land and that in that land there should be white and black colored Indian that will sing with the same hymn book. In the fact that when we see each other as human, not as black, white, or whatsoever. And then lastly, I've been listening to the people who are criticizing whatever that happened in America. I think criticism is allowed, but at least they should criticize constructively. They should not just criticize, because if they were to be in Ramaphosa's shoes, not everything that they will touch on, people will be happy about it. You know, he's just a human. They would have been the same results if they were the ones that went to America and does the same thing that Ramaphosa has done.
You can never please everyone. Modisa, before you go, very quickly, just take me back to that idea you have of an Orania-style community. You're saying you would do it differently and do what?
Have a place that will accommodate every color of a skin, in a sense that when we see each other, we must see each other as human. This thing of black, white, Indian, it annoys me really. We must see each other as human, not white, black, or Indian.
Thank you, Modisa. Thank you for making that point in Mafikeng there, in Mahikeng. Let's go to Slee in Cape Town. Good morning to you, Slee. You want to reflect on that meeting in the Oval Office?
Good morning, Thulasizwe. That meeting in the Oval Office was psychological warfare. And the only person who was a winner in that meeting was Johan Rupert, because he managed to do two things. He managed to do one, to show that he is the power of the ANC, whether we are conscious of that or not. And two, he managed to communicate to the DA that I can make you, I can break you.
Sure.
And for me, that was my observation. And in doing so, he also was trying to communicate to the EFF as well that I have the power to smear you. Because when he communicates with Donald Trump and he pulled their history of knowing each other from the 70s, and then in doing so, he also appears as a person that dissipates this perception of white Afrikaner violence. So everyone came back and they were so grateful to him because he's such an outstanding South African citizen and everything. And then we put aside every history and knowledge that we have for what he has done in South African politics. Listen, it's two things can exist at once, right? One, he did well by communicating the fact that this is not, it's a crime issue.
Yeah.
Right. But two, and I don't blame him for taking that power. I blame Ramaphosa for giving him that power, not just Ramaphosa, the ANC as well.
All right.
You know,
Slee, thank you for that. Points there made by Slee in Cape Town, reflecting on that meeting in the Oval Office. Let me take a voice note also on the same issue before I go to Freedom in East London.
Hi, Thulasizwe. My name is Lesidima. Can you please ask for me how much South Africa spend when they go to United States to meet Donald Trump to prove themselves that they are not a country of genocidal? Apart from that, the Donald Trump seems as he held South African ransom. That is why South Africa go to prove themselves they are not a genocidal country. My name is Les. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. The cost of it all. And it's a fair point to make in a context where we're saying that we're trying to realize savings across the board, right? Because our finances need that. But this flip side of the argument says, in a way, protecting the image of the country is an investment that in the long run, in the medium term and the long run, will benefit the country and will be good in terms of, for instance, the trade relationships. Because, for instance, part of what we are told, and I'm not defending anything, I'm just giving you what the rationale is for undertaking trips such as these ones. What we are told is that, for instance, the conversation around trade and investment actually advanced a great deal, especially once the two delegations were meeting in the cabinet room outside of the glare of the media of the Oval Office. So that's part of the rationale, but I agree with you. There are certain delegations where even I've asked myself, what is that about? What is the actual benefit to South Africans of taking so many people to that meeting? Let me take a quick call from Freedom in East London. Good morning to you on the same issue of the meeting in the Oval Office.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. You see what happened between Trump and Ramaphosa. Trump, he has highlighted himself that he is a voice of the voiceless. I never dreamed and thought and think that maybe there will be a president like Trump. He's the best. He knows humanity and want to help not just only the white people. He just want to help. That's why Ramaphosa, firstly, he denied that the whites are killed in Africa, in South Africa, especially here in East London, where I come from. If you are a white person, you are going to be killed. If you have anything, a property, a car, everything, you can be killed here. And no one can highlight that until we need
I don't think there was a denial
okay.
that white people are among the people who are killed as part of the crime in South Africa.
What was denied,
Freedom, was a genocide. We all know what a genocide is, right?
The genocide is whereby everyone can be killed, everyone can be raped, like the children who have been raped by Pastor Omotoso, where the ANC knows that the children, even our old grandparents here, the children have been raped here. And the people who are doing that, the offenders, they go like the heroes like Amatosa. They go like the heroes like Santago, Santago, the melters that banned and killed the drivers of Intercape. That is a crime that everyone is aware. And no one is doing anything.
All right, Freedom. Thank you for that. That's Freedom in East London there, just sharing his own perspectives on that issue.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
All right, let's kick off with the soccer. We're all anticipating this weekend. Mamelodi Sundowns, they're eyeing a second star as they prepare for the CAF Champions League final first leg against Egypt's Pyramid FC at Loftus Versfeld tomorrow. The Pretoria Giants lifted their first continental title in 2016, and a win this time would cement their legacy as South Africa's most successful club in modern African football. Defender Musa Lebusa says the squad is locked in. They are aware of the threat posed by striker Fiston Mayela, who knocked out Pirates in the semis. It's all to play for. Kick-off at 3 p.m. and you can catch it live on SABC Sport. Let's go to this man, and he's known for his antics. Musa Lebusa.
But we don't focus on one player. We focus as a team, on the team as a whole. But us as defenders, we trying to make sure that we keep the team as far away possible as from our box and make sure that we minimize their chances, because in and around the box is very deadly. So that's one thing that we're looking at, and hopefully we'll succeed and make sure that the team gets advantage.
On to tennis now. Iga Swiatek is entering her 7th Roland Garros campaign and is in pursuit of making history. She bids to become the first player in the Open era to win the tournament for a 4th consecutive time. However, she is in poor form coming into the event.
I'm working hard to be ready and to play as good tennis as possible. For sure, this season has had more like ups and downs than the years before. But yeah, you know, I know my game is there. I just need to figure out how to use it in the most important moments and in the best way during the matches, and that's it. But you know, tennis it's a sometimes complicated sport, but we should make it easy in our heads. So I'll just start step by step.
And finally, Formula One. Lewis Hamilton has agreed that time is running out for Ferrari this season before it switches its full focus to the new power unit regulations next year. It has been close to a disastrous start to the campaign for Ferrari and Hamilton. However, they're looking forward to the Monaco Grand Prix with some of the new rules.
I have no idea how it's going to affect us, but I'm glad we have some. I'm glad it's something new. If we come to every year, we come to Monaco, it's the same format every weekend, and you get pretty much the same result. One stop. I think at least this time we're forced to have to do 2 stops, and you've got to decide whether you do that early or later on in the race. So I definitely think it throws a spanner into the mix. Hopefully it makes it a little bit more exciting than it already is.
And that's your morning brief sport. Shift gears with me Saturday night on Spotlight, 7 to 9 p.m. I'll catch you then.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the DA has called for urgent action to address crime in the country, including farm murders. Yesterday, the party issued a statement in which it welcomed Parliament's renewed focus on farm murders. Former City of Cape Town member of the Mayoral Committee for Human Settlements, Malusi Boy, and 28 co-accused are expected to appear in the Cape Town Magistrates Court today. The 28 include alleged crime boss Ralph Stanfield and his wife. And senators in the Democratic Republic of Congo have approved a government request that former President Joseph Kabila be stripped of his parliamentary immunity and charged with treason. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very slow on the N14. This is the Krugersdorp Highway, moving between the Lanseria exit and Deep Sloot, I beg your pardon, Deep Sloot. So on your way to Pretoria, that is quite a big crash scene, pretty much halfway between those 2 exits. So Krugersdorp Highway North under some pressure. Breakdown N1 South at Rigel Avenue. So all of a sudden, the N1 that was moving quite nicely this morning, starting to push back to Atterbury Road. There's also breakdown at Buccleuch Interchange. N1 and N3 routes starting to queue up as you link through the interchange up towards, turning towards the N1 North Midrand. Durban, a lot of congestion around the Commercial Highway, and N2, it's a stationary truck on the Commercial Highway bridge at the N2. So coming from Commercial, it's heavy. Chris Harney going north onto the N2 is bad, and you can't come off the N2 northbound with ease. So there's a big pile up of traffic almost back as far as Inanda Road on the N2 approaching that Commercial off-ramp. Cape Town side easing up. The M7 starting to flow out of Mitchell's Plain. That took a while to clear this morning. N2 both ways through Somerset West quite busy, and a big fatal collision just south of Worcester inland on the R60. That section of roadway is currently closed. There'll be delays, and there'll be quite extensive detours that you'll have to take to get around that scene. The crash scene is just south of Worcester on the Robertson Road, if you like. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
One more time this week, let's turn to Ndauling Lechela with another update. Ndauling, tell me about retail sales. You're saying that they've increased in March. That's good, isn't it?
That's right, Silas. The retail sector showing some resilience despite economic pressures and pressures on households, with a 1.5% increase in sales in March. Health and beauty retailers as well as fashion retailers were key drivers of growth. Although there was a slight decline in sales from February to March, the first quarter of 2025 saw solid growth driven by general dealers and clothing stores. On a quarterly basis, sales increased 4.1%. Hardware and home improvement, as well as health, also contributing to the growth. Taking into account the slight uptick in consumer inflation that was out earlier this week, we saw inflation tick up from 2.7% to 2.8% in April. There aren't much concerns about that, as it still remains low, or rather still remains below the SARB's 3 to 6% target. And so economists expect some more resilience from households as inflation remains low. So they expect spending to continue to improve into the next few months in the second quarter.
And then tell me, in the health sector, Life Healthcare, you're saying that they've posted upbeat earnings. How did that come about?
This comes despite South Africa's struggling economy and limited medical scheme market. The group remains confident also in its expansion plans. CEO Peter Wharton-Hood believes there's untapped demand in certain regions and that Life Healthcare is the preferred provider. Wharton-Hood said although medical scheme membership has plateaued at around 9 million people, the insured population is aging and becoming sicker, driving demand for healthcare services. I don't think that's a good thing overall, but I guess it works in the advantage of Life Healthcare. Now, following the sale of Life Molecular and AMD, the group has more cash on its hands, and so it plans to invest 2.3 billion rands in capital expenditure, adding new beds, facilities, and diagnostic services. This includes building a new 140-bed hospital near Paarl and expanding its diagnostic business. Now, Life Healthcare's interim results show an 8.1% increase in revenue, while earnings rose 9%. The company remains undeterred by the government's push for NHI, stating that the demand for healthcare services is present and the return on investment is swift. Wharton-Hood believes waiting for regulatory certainty could take years, and the company is moving forward with its expansion plans. The group is optimistic about reaching occupancy levels of 70% in its acute hospitals in the near term.
Yeah, as you always do then, so expertly, cast your eye forward for us, please, and tell us what kind of a day we can expect in the markets.
Looking at my crystal ball, local markets likely to stage a recovery today, just following its global peers. In terms of company news, there's results out from Nampak and Quantum Foods, so markets will be digesting that at the open. Meanwhile, on the currency front, the rand remains resilient, shrugging off some of the downbeat sentiment globally. It's sitting at 17.94 to the dollar this hour. Then in Wall Street, futures are mixed. Trade on that front has been choppy for most part of the week, with investors eyeing the bond market and looking to the tax bill vote. Lastly, in Asia, Japan's inflation figures stealing most of the headlines, with many now pricing in a rate cut from the Bank of Japan. Despite this, markets pushing through and in positive territory today.
Dowling, thank you for that. Have yourself a fantastic weekend. That's Dowling Lechela. She's kept you updated on business, economics, and the markets throughout the last 3 hours of the show.
Get your payments done with the utmost security and convenience when you purchase a TV license now. With our new secure payment systems with a one-time PIN, OTP feature, and the choice of receiving your OTP via SMS or email, you can ensure prompt and secure payments. The additional use of capture will protect you against spam and automated data attractions. With TV licenses, you can enjoy watching all your favorite shows or movies that matter to you. Get yours today. Visit www.tvlic.co.za.
As the uphill pressure mounts, Amakosi aim to calm the situation with maximum points, while Rise and Shine believe they know how to stop the gold and black. Who will rise with victory? Rise, Kosi Rise, or Rise and Shine? This is the Betway Premiership. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game, Kaizer Chiefs FC versus Polokwane City FC, on Saturday 24 May, streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC 1 at 2:30 p.m. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Thulasizwe Simelane. on SAFM.
Yeah, so let's talk Starlink, right? It's been quite the center of focus in the recent months, especially in conversations about the relationship between South Africa and the United States and the role of Elon Musk in all of it. Some interesting regulatory developments with the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, Thulasizwe, basically giving a directive to the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa to undertake an inquiry into the country's individual electronic communications network services. It's called IECNS licenses. Part of what has come through from there is what is known as the Equity Equivalent Investment Program, EEIP. Lots of acronyms, but the bottom line is that it is seen and being read among some quarters as being preparation for a strategic policy workaround to allow Elon Musk's Starlink internet service to operate in the country, circumventing, in a way, some strict black economic empowerment laws. Let's see if my understanding of this situation is correct. Let's speak to William Bird, who is Director at Media Monitoring Africa. Good morning to you, William. Thank you for your time. It's a bit complex trying to explain it all, but do you share that understanding that this program, it's called the Equity Equivalent Investment Program, would have the effect of allowing not only Starlink, but other, service providers and companies from elsewhere in the world to invest in digital infrastructure, rural access, and training programs in the country?
Good morning. Yes, so essentially it's kind of a swap around for, instead of it being about 30% ownership, that they commit to contributing that equivalent amount to local investments. And on the surface of it, that isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Because you say ideally the millions of people in South Africa who don't yet have access, they should be able to get access, and this potentially offers them a means of getting access. Of course, the big question then is how on earth are they going to pay for it? And that is one of the obvious big kind of challenges. So you need to make sure then that if they do come in, that they find a means and a mechanism of doing so. Now, we know that at the first hearing that ICASA had on this, they'd specially convened this thing all for Starlink's benefit, and Starlink didn't have the courtesy to pitch up to the hearing. This was, of course, before the most recent meeting. So, again, it speaks to a level of arrogance and, again, power play that Starlink through Musk is trying to exercise over our government. I think he likes the idea that they can come in and just command and tell governments what to do and not have to really want to abide by any local laws and strictures. But these at least offer some kind of a workaround that would then see development and access to the internet, and that's not a bad thing. Contemptible though Elon Musk is, and on many levels, you have to question the basis on which you'd want to invite someone into our country to do business here when they are clearly someone who's so opposed to our constitutional democracy and the direction that our country is taking.
Yeah. So, I mean, are there equivalents that we can draw here, William? And I'm thinking within the broader framework of redress legislation that, for instance, in employment equity, I know that there are certain various, steps and initiatives that count as your contribution to redress and black economic empowerment. Is this comparable, what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what they're trying to work out and how they're trying to get their way around it. And if you look, this is effectively what Canal Plus is doing with MultiChoice, because, of course, the issue is the amount of foreign ownership. You can't have a broadcaster that's owned by more than a percentage owned by in foreign ownership. And so there what they did is they worked out a way of splitting the company off so that they could then go ahead with the merger effectively anyway. So where you've got big money involved and lots of very clever lawyers, you almost certainly will find a way, provided there's an interest in doing so. What we have to push for as the SABC in particular, as the public broadcaster, and ourselves as civil society, is to make sure that whatever deals are done do actually serve the public interest, and that they're not just finding wily ways of getting around our legislation, given that the legislation is there for for the most part, really good reasons. You don't want entities to just be coming in here and just extracting value and then either not paying sufficient tax on that or, for example, not benefiting and contributing to our country. We are an emerging democracy, and that's the kind of legal framework that we've established that all of the other players have to abide by. Now, if that's the case for everyone else, you really want it to be the case for them. And just because he happens to be the richest man in the world, that doesn't mean that he shouldn't be forced to play by the same rules. So our role in this is going to be to make sure that we keep a very beady eye on whatever terms and agreements are there, and then to make sure that they actually adhere to those things, that they do actually provide rural access, that they do actually provide development, that they provide power in whatever way, shape or form to the communities that are there. And if they're not willing to do that, then we have to say, well, thank you very much, but we'll look for alternatives because, there have to be others.
And in a way, William, you preempt my last question to you, that are there transparency concerns about the origins of this initiative, whether it was due to the lobbying of Elon Musk or whoever is lobbying on behalf of Starlink, or is it objectively? Because, it's quite easy to link it to Starlink, but actually on paper, it is said that it's not just about Starlink. It includes other potential investors into the ICT sector.
So, if that is the case, then we need to see that. And again, the good thing about ICASA as a Chapter 9 body is that it means though they will have to be public hearings, that information will have to be made public. The processes will need to be made public. So while there won't be full transparency, there will be a lot greater transparency here than in many other countries, for example, and that's a really good thing. So as long as we are able to engage and participate in those exercises and make sure that they're not trying to just pull the wool over our eyes and make meaningless once-off donations to an internet cafe in a small town kind of thing, then I think that's it may be a model that works. In as much as we want to make sure that you push for broad-based transformation, you do need to then say, well, if that doesn't work in this instance, what are the alternatives that are going to have a similar consequence? And here, the critical issue is bridging the digital divide. And that is one of the things that means that even though this is like doing a deal with the devil, you do need to make sure that the broader goal of getting more people having access to fast, cheap, reliable internet means that it may be worth, putting a glove on your hand and doing the deal.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time. William Bird is Director at Media Monitoring Africa.
Welcome back to the sun-drenched shores of St. Marie, where the beaches are beautiful and the murders are mysterious. It's Death in Paradise Season 7. New cases, quirky suspects, and D.I. Jack Mooney, who's still figuring out the island and how to drink coconut water gracefully. Catch the show where paradise meets puzzling crime, because even in paradise, someone always has a secret. Death in Paradise Season 7, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 28 May. S3, open up.
WAFCON defending champions Banyana have a crucial meeting with the Zebras. Both nations are elevating their preparations for the highly anticipated Women's Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco. This is the international friendly. Experience the Southern African Derby, South Africa versus Botswana, this Wednesday, 28 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, S3 and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation. SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still slow but easing. That's the call on the N14. If you are heading between Lanseria and Dipford on your way to Pretoria, big crash there earlier this morning, but it looks like that scene is much improved. The N1 South, a breakdown, stationary truck before Rigel Avenue coming out of Pretoria. That's quite heavy. Queues pushing back as far as Linwood Road at this stage. Crossing to Durban, the Kwamashu Highway, a broken down truck this morning on the N2 Highway Bridge, causing chaos. It's really bad coming out of Kwamashu. Queues back through Duffs Road and back towards Malindela. Top end of Chris Harney as you come up towards the N2. That's heavy. And the N2 North really struggling to get off. You've got nowhere to go as you come off the N2 North. So that's pushing a queue right back through Queen Nundy Drive. Don't forget Durban this weekend. Major delays expected on the run down towards Toti on the south coast. The N2 South will be closed from Prospecton towards Amanzim Toti from 2 p.m. on Saturday and then right through the weekend until 4 a.m. Monday. Northbound should stay open, but it'll be southbound delays again. What you sat through last weekend, if you ended up there during the closure, you will sit through again. Make sure you're through onto the south coast before 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, or make sure you've got plenty of time to get through a resultant backlog. Cape Town, the N1 inbound, slow just over the elevated freeway as you come into the city centre, and a big crash just south of Worcester on the R60. It's a fatal collision this morning. There are certainly delays in that area and possible diversions as you loop around that scene. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Yeah. So there was Nkosinathi Luthuli. You were trolling me. Now I'm trolling you back, Nkosinathi. And that's because the legend himself, Neil Tovey, joins me now to look forward to that first leg of the CAF Champions League final between Mamelodi Sundowns and Egypt's Pyramids FC. He was dependable when he was captain of Bafana and defender, and I knew that he was going to come through. Good morning to you, Captain, and thank you for your time. So how big a moment is this for, let's say, initially for Mamelodi Sundowns, but also broadly for South African football?
Yeah, good morning to all. Look, it's always a huge moment when you play in a cup final and a Champions League final at that. It's not Sundowns' first rodeo, so I think the experience should be able to carry them through. Whether a good result at home or not, I think they are capable of producing results in both venues, home and away. So, but it is very important coming off the under-20 success and Bafana's success. So just to keep the momentum of the South African football going, I think they're more than capable.
Yeah, and when you look at the squad, the Sundowns squad, Captain, what stands out for you in terms of the core of the team and some of the critical areas of performance that will need to be optimal if Sundowns are to emerge victorious?
Well, firstly, like I said, the experience that they have in this kind of match, like cup finals, but then also they're more than capable because Egyptians will come with a lot of experience in set plays. They thrive on set plays, and I think Sundowns would have done their homework on set plays, and hopefully, they've been able to contain teams and set plays. So that'll be vital because Pyramids will be sitting back very, very deep in this first fixture, trying to use a counter attack. So they must just be wary of how they are organized and structured in terms of attack, because when it breaks down, how they organize to get the ball back as quick as they can, because it's not going to be rocket science how the Pyramids will play. They'll sit deep, not allow space in behind, and try to catch them on the counter attack. But they played against teams like that. I mean, the whole Champions League format allows for teams when they play away from home to sit deep and try counter-attack tactics.
Yeah, and being the home side, what does Mamelodi Sundowns need to do to make sure that they've got advantage going into the second leg? Obviously, not lose is the obvious answer, but over and above that, how do you strengthen your hand ahead of the second leg?
I think if they go in the first opening 15 minutes of the game, if they can grab a goal, that'll sort of disrupt the pyramid structure a little bit. They might be then a little bit looking in their inexperience to come out and try open the game up to attack to get the equalizer, and then you can get another one or two. So I think the opening stands in the game, Sundowns must really, really push hard and prize an opening to get that goal, which will disrupt Pyramid's whole thought of how they're going to play the game on the day.
And Neil, just lastly, we've been making the point, and I'm one of those who hold that view, that something is shifting in the atmosphere in as far as South African football is concerned. Whether you look at Banyana Amajita recently and that victory, Bafana itself, the South African teams and their performance in continental competitions. Are we just being overly optimistic, or is this promising? Does it have the makings of the possibility of recapturing the past glory, the glory of, the generations such as yours?
No, I don't think it's just like a blue moon. I think it's really a case that yes, our teams have been doing really, really well in African football. Stellenbosch weren't far off a cup final, nor were Pirates. Sundowns obviously in. And Bafana's success, they got bronze in the last AFCON, and have had a really, really good qualifying campaign all around, bar that nonsense that happened administratively. But besides that, they really, look good, whether they're home or away, and that's I think is setting us up for a really, really nice patch in the years to come, and hopefully we can add another qualification for the World Cup. That will be special, because then it gives hope for these youngsters as well to start getting into the mix of Bafana.
All right. Neil Tovey, thank you for your time this morning. It's good to talk to you. That is South African football legend Neil Tovey weighing in ahead of the big game, Mamelodi Sundowns versus Pyramids FC. And that is the first leg of the CAF Champions League final, and it's taking place. It's going down at the Loftus Versfeld tomorrow.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Let me take a voice note immediately on that, just that upcoming game, Mamelodi Sundowns.
Thulas, as a die-hard Orlando Pirates supporter, I'm saying Masandawana! Go all out, Bafana style, and make the country proud. Go all out. Talantupa. Yeah. We at Pirates, I think we made a big mistake. We were leading this team, and instead of defending the league, we wanted more goals, and they punished that. So we're saying, Masandawana, Bafana style, go all out and bring your second star. Good luck, guys, from a die-hard Orlando Pirates supporter.
Yeah.
Thank you, Thulas.
Yeah, I think all rivalries are parked, at least for this weekend. I absolutely think we can afford to park rivalries and just stand behind, the flag, the national flag, that is South Africa, the South African flag. Just reflecting on, a few of the other comments that have been coming through about what I said about freedom of speech and us not jailing people for the views that they hold. I don't want to belabor this point. So the final thing I will say about it, and it really is the last time I entertain it, the answer to questions about Vicky Momberg, Penny Sparrow and the likes, by the logic that is being advanced by some people, it would mean that a thief would steal my property and then argue that in terms of Section 25 of the Constitution, I've got a right to property. That is the long and short of it. And if that doesn't make it clear, I don't know. That's it. I don't have anything. I can't take this point further than that. So let me take a call from Tula in East Rand. Good morning to you, Tula. You want to talk about the Oval meeting? Yes, good morning.
Sure. 2 points. First one, this Stenhaven, how old is he? That's my first question. Second, in the Bayaland, why are we so much concentrating on America? Because if I look at the population of the entire Africa, Africa GLA, we can still do business within ourselves, even Amanyamazi. Other than punishing ourselves over concentrating in America, is it really does this mean the business we see in America?
600 companies, Tula. 600 American companies doing business in South Africa.
With those 600 companies, can't the African market sustain very low market? Those 600 companies are supplying us. But in this show, like if we start exporting, wouldn't we be making more money than create more business and employ more people when we export to the entire continent?
These things are tricky, my
around
brother.
America?
These things are tricky. Let me tell you why. So, for instance, some of the products that we manufacture, if you found a reliable market, so if you are selling something and you found, you know what, my buyers are there, wouldn't you want to keep going there where your buyers are? So, for instance, we export a lot to the United States and we would want to keep that market open. No, this is not to say we shouldn't trade with Tunisia, with Tanzania, etc. But if you know, what if I take this street to sell my wares, trust me, I'm going to make sales.
On the
Yes.
Let's look at the issue of motor industry.
Yes.
We are the only country in Africa who manufactures reliable vehicles. How much are we exporting to the US, and how much can we export to the entire of Africa?
Yeah.
I
I don't have the answer for you, Thula. Unfortunately, I'm out of time. Thank you for that engagement. That's Thula in East Rand there, making points about the issues of trade. It's very tricky, this thing, you know. We are all for intra-African trade, and that has been the mantra for the African continent for the longest time. Yes. But that means also at the same time, keep your traditional markets open as well. Be pragmatic about opening as wide as possible for your goods to be able to be traded. All right, that's it, really. That's our story. That's our full and final account to you in lieu of your morning brief for this Friday. Have yourself a fantastic weekend. More quality news, current affairs and talk programming here on SAFM, starting with The Talking Point with Kathy Moshlahlana immediately after the news.
In our top stories, DA welcomes Parliament's efforts to combat farm murders and convict the trio in Jocelyn Smith disappearance to appear in court. Good morning. The DA has called for urgent action to address crime in the country, including farm murders. Yesterday, the party issued a statement in which it welcomed Parliament's renewed focus on farm murders. The adoption of the Joint Parliamentary Committee report on farm murders was tabled on Wednesday. It includes the establishment of a specialized rural safety unit in the SAPS, strengthening crime intelligence in rural areas and improving prosecution. DA spokesperson Willie Oukamp commended Agriculture Minister John Steenhuisen for proposing to make fighting farm attacks a priority.
We heard Mr. John Steenhuisen in the Oval Office said that farm attacks, farm murders must be declared a priority crime because it's got a difficult way in which to address it because those people are in the far-flung rural areas. It's sometimes not easy to get there, and we've got a police service that is not fully capacitated to address rural crime in South Africa. And John Steenhuisen made it very clear. He said that we've got a problem in our rural areas, we've got a problem on our farms, and those farmers include white, black, coloured farmers. It is not only a white thing.
Former City of Cape Town member of the Mayoral Committee for Human Settlements, Malusi Boy, and 28 co-accused are expected to appear in the Cape Town Magistrates Court today. The 28 include alleged crime boss Ralph Stanfield and his wife. The group is facing charges including money laundering, racketeering, fraud and violations under the Prevention of Organised Crime Act. The case relates to a tender amounting over R1 billion in the city. The state alleges that Boy, a former DA Mayoral Committee member, and the co-accused are part of a criminal enterprise that Stanfield leads. Boy is out on bail of R250,000. Stanfield and his wife remain in custody. 3 people convicted of human trafficking in the case of 6-year-old Jocelyn Smith's disappearance are expected to appear in the Western Cape High Court today. The girl's mother, Kelly Smith, as well as Jacqueline Apollos and Stefano van Rijn, will appear ahead of sentencing procedures, which will start in Saldanha Bay on Tuesday next week. Earlier this month, the court found the state proved beyond reasonable doubt that the three kidnapped the girl and exchanged her for payment or promise of payment. The state intends to lead expert evidence on human trafficking and victim impact statements during sentencing. Jocelyn disappeared from her home in Middelpos in Saldanha Bay in February last year. Senators in the Democratic Republic of Congo have approved a government request that former President Joseph Kabila be stripped of his parliamentary immunity and charged with treason. Kinshasa accused the DRC's former leader of supporting the M23 rebels. The BBC's Damascene de Boissy reports.
Kabila has lost the honorary lifetime senatorial immunity he had been granted in 2019 when he left office, paving the way for him to stand trial. But his current whereabouts are unconfirmed. Mr. Kabila has previously denied links to the rebels. If Mr. Kabila stands trial, he will become the first former head of state in the DRC to face treason charges. But analysts warn a trial could destabilize the country. The government has not yet confirmed when a formal indictment or trial could take place.
And finally, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has accused some of his country's closest allies of siding with rapists and baby killers after they criticized Israel's conduct in Gaza. On Monday, Britain, France and Canada condemned the expanded Israeli